All right, and so we're live.
And we're live.
Let me just check YouTube to make sure we're okay. Do you see it?
Oh, I just saw it and then it disappeared. So that's weird.
Oh, that's not good.
No, I mean I like. Oh, here we go. Okay, I see it. I'm clicking on it now, so I'm gonna mute it, but so that I can see the chat.
Okay.
Let me just check YouTube. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
Live.
How come I don't see it?
Oh,
Normally, it shows up on my homepage, but it's not doing
you usually can see yourself when you're live, because I can't. And if you're watching the replay, hello.
that. Hey! As we're getting our lives together, we are going to start in a minute, and
Yes.
we're going to talk about friends today. And
Yes.
making friends as an adult.
Yes, I'm excited. And ladies, as you come in, or if we happen to have a gentleman, I don't know, they could be sneaking in.
Mm-hmm.
So, and y'all know as always, I'm acting like this is my channel. I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead. No, go ahead, because I'm right here. I'm busy. So go,
Okay,
go ahead.
always. Feel free to drop your questions in the chat. Welcome to Patricia's channel, aka Guys Design. And if you don't know me, I'm just another random YouTuber. Uh, Evelyn, that's all you need to know. And Patricia and I, we've been doing these girl chats for, has it been a couple of months?
Yes, it has now. It
That's
has.
insane. And so, like, we just like to come, and the whole premise of this is that we want to bring a portion, a piece of our girl chats to YouTube and kind of share it with y'all. So, and Patricia, I forgot to tell you that somebody messaged me last week. She listens on her commute home from work, and she was like, "Listen, y'all learned me something." um, Jam Sharice is here. Hey, hey, welcome back.
Welcome. Yes, yes,
So,
yes. Okay, so people are starting to come in. Awesome. So, welcome, guys. Welcome to another Girl Chat with your girl, Evelyn and Patricia. Here we are on another lovely Tuesday to chat it up, you guys. Chat it up. Like you said, for a few months we've been doing this and it's been fun. You guys have been. Matter of fact, I did get also a DM. We were actually live when she DM'd me, but I wasn't paying attention to my phone. And she was like, this has been so useful to her. And I appreciate that. I appreciate you guys letting us know how useful this has been to you guys. It's great for us. It's therapeutic for me. It's fun. But listen, we do it anyway on the phone, right? So it's just with an audience. But yeah, so we're so excited to be here for another Tuesday. If you do not know who Evelyn is by now, I'm about to inform you. Miss Evelyn is a chef, entrepreneur, businesswoman, business strategist. She's a friend. She's a speaker. She does all of the things. And I'm so happy to have you yet again here on my channel.
I'm happy to be here.
So, today, guys, we're going to talk about friends. Two things, housekeeping things I want to just let you guys know that we are um, uh, reading The Audacity to Be Queen by Gina DeVee on my channel. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that's if you are part of, the designer life group, right? The second thing I wanted to highlight here is that tomorrow at noon, I think, I'm trying to remember when I scheduled that video. At noon, a new video is going to go live on my channel where I talk about the jealous friend. So that's where this theme of talking about friends kind of started. And so I kind of wanted to talk a little bit more because I know it's hard to navigate, friends, and as you grow up, right? Because when you're younger, it's all about the girl in my class, the girl next door. As you get older, you make conscious decisions about the people that you choose to have in your life. You ought to, anyway. So we want to chit chat a little bit about, making friends, and can we start off with the how, Evelyn? You mind? Like, how do let me ask you, how do adult professional women make friends? Like, how do you find friends?
Okay, so I will say this. This is a question that I have definitely asked myself in the past. And I think even just that question is probably step number one, because I think, most of our life, we just kind of picked up friends along the way. We were in environments, whether it was school or college or church or family, friends, extended, whatever. And I think we just kind of picked up friends along the way. And so we almost never had to exercise the muscle of finding friends. So for me, it started with just asking myself that, like, yes, I still have some friends from, middle and high school. And yes, I still had some friends from college, but we were all over the country. And so it was like, well, if I'm living here, then how do I have friends here where I am? So first of all, just even saying, knowing that I had to be intentional about it
Yeah.
was probably the first step. Um, then secondly, I think it was, I kind of thought about how I made friends younger, which was I was in different environments. So you've heard me say this before, you have to have interest to be interesting, so people will be interested. So I just really started thinking about what are some things that I like to do. And I just started doing those things. And I purposely put myself in situations where there were other women. So whether it was like, hey, okay, I like to work out, maybe if I go to this class regularly, and introduce myself to somebody that may become my gym buddy, or if I go to this Bible study and they have a little pre connections thing there, if I go to that, and even though that's not something that I would usually do, if my intent was to make friends, I just put myself in situations. I volunteered, I joined groups. I had to be friendly.
Yeah.
you, so I also, like, I started inviting people over for dinner or get-togethers, right? And I mean, sometimes when you're trying to make new friends, it might be a little awkward if it's like you don't know the people that well. But I think like having game nights and just like inviting that one or two new people over, some people stick and you're like, okay, this will work. Some people, they were cool and it was a nice acquaintance. So before I get long-winded and take over the whole chat, it really was being intentional and then putting myself out there for lack of a better phrase, and then trying to be friendly. Hey, what's your name? Oh, we should get together, and mean it, right? Having to do the follow-up, right? And feeling a little, awkward, uncomfortable, and particularly as an introvert. I will say I have been blessed that I draw extroverts to me. So once I kind of crack the door open, they put the whole foot and arm in. So, like we're good to go. Um, but yeah, that's how I've made friends as an adult, and embracing your hobbies. I mean, if I use you and I as an example, okay, I just started doing YouTube and watching videos, and I've watched lots of people over the years, but I've made actual real life friends because I started watching their videos, they started watching mine, we started commenting, interacting, and here we are. I don't even know how many years later, and we're friends. So, what about you?
I I agree with you in that. And if you guys don't know, Evelyn and I talk a lot about living intentionally on our channels, and so this is an area too that I have learned that I have to be intentional about. And and what you said is so true. How we just, I'll just use your word, collect friends, collect people, right? Based on we were in the same class, or we went to the same college, or our parents knew each other, we go to the same church. And it's convenient at the time, and then as time goes by, you might get disconnected. And so getting into the environment where now you're in the professional space and you don't like have to hang out or have to interact in a way that you don't actually want to, it may be hard to like meet people, whatever. Hey, Caribbean girls, welcome. um, you don't have to. So, to be honest, I struggled. I struggled because here was one thing, and this is a completely different conversation. I was very resistant to making friends at work, right? And as a professional, this is the place where you spend a lot of your time is at work and in the work environment. So it's like, okay, if I can't, hey, what's up, Erica? if I can't make friends at work, then where am I going to meet people? How am I going to meet like-minded women that I want to spend time with, that ain't about the drama? Like, how do I do that? So that was a learning curve for me. And like Evelyn said, like an introvert, I am not the type of person that's gonna be like, "Hey, my name is Patricia. Nice to meet you." Like, that is just not me. But let me tell you what I started doing is that and this is gonna sound maybe creeper McCreepson, but I likened it to dating. And just how intentional I am, like how I can see the character of a man and what he's about and what his motivation is, and look at his interests and see what kind, if would that flow with me or his upbringing or whatever, and do the same thing with women when I interact with them. And I started seeing that, hey, I would vibe with her. Like, she's cool. Like, she's real cool. I like her. And then after having a few interactions, I would get to the point, I worked myself up to the point where it's like, yes, I would ask the girl on a date. You know what I'm saying? Not like that, but I just like, hey, girl, I'm about to go shopping such and such day. You want to come with me? Or let's go get coffee or whatever, because
Yeah.
I realized that, let me tell you, good friends are a dime a dozen. Like, seriously, y'all, just like they said, I mean, there are plenty of fish in the sea, but we all know that there's a lot of foolishness out there. And same way when it comes to women, if you can find someone that is good, that has good value, that is into the same things as you are, that's trying to level up in their life, that's about that life when it comes to spirituality and whatever else, hold on to her. Like,
Whole win.
hold on to her. So, and I must say, just as intentional as you are, single ladies, hopefully, about especially if you're wanting marriage, just as intentional as you are in your dating life, I feel like you should be in your friendship life as well. Like, developing a tribe of women is is vital, I believe, to your own spiritual and just well-being in general. So I feel like that's not something that should be an afterthought. You know what I mean? But it should be something that's like Hey, SJ, welcome, welcome. You have so many questions. Well, drop them, girl.
Get to typing. But no, Patricia, let me tell you, and we've heard the cliche about, you become the sum total of your five closest friends,
Mm.
but it's so true. And I've seen that happen to me positively. I've seen it happen to me not so positively in phases of my life, right? But once you start to see that you start to become like your friends,
Mm.
no matter how influential you think you are, the collective, then you get real particular about the women that you let in your space. And it's not about a you can't sit with us mentality, but it's like, who do I really admire about this? Who do I really enjoy about this? And if that rubbed off on me, would I be okay? And it's not about looking for perfection, but I think that's when I really started saying, I've got a really bomb set of friends. And then I moved from just, and we talked about this earlier this year, I moved from just, okay, being intentional about friendship to now being intentional about, like, I'm trying to create lifelong friends, right? Like, I'm trying to keep the women that I have forever, not let them slip through the cracks. And then if other women come along the way, that's great.
Mhm.
But also knowing that that capacity is limited, because to be what I would consider a great friend takes a certain amount of effort. And I don't necessarily have the bandwidth to do that with like 25 people. Um, so yeah, but I just want to say, like, you're so right about, curating your relationships. And when you see a good woman, make her your sis. You know what I'm saying? Like, snatch her up. Okay. Be like, that's homie right there. So I'm definitely like that. It just be like, it's kind of almost childish, but I experienced this from a friend who was like, I think we should be closer. And I was like, right. You know what I'm saying? So, and I like, it was so vulnerable, but also so like, yeah, me too. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So, listen.
Look, I what I realize with me too is, and I'm just gonna step on just a few toes. It may not be everybody, but just a few toes. And I think that what I have come to find is a lot of times women are so um, they're so ready to be vulnerable and open to men, but for whatever reason have a barrier when it comes to women. You're so quick to tell him about every relationship you ever had, everything you done been through, or whatever. But when it comes to women, that we're so we want to look good in front of each other. We want to look like we have it all together. We refuse to be vulnerable, and I think it creates this block for us where we have a whole bunch of people that we just like to be entertained with. You know what I mean? Someone to go shopping with, someone to go to the movies with, someone to gossip with, but we're not willing to expose ourselves to grow and to push through those things or strongholds that are like in our life. And I think that through your relationships with women, you have such a great opportunity to grow, to connect, and to have a sense of community. And I've learned that. I've learned that as a woman, I'll be the first one to tell you, I can be so guarded, I can be so closed without you even knowing it. But I've realized that if I just open myself up just a little bit, just a little bit, I think I can't remember. Evelyn, remind me. I remember that I think I was watching you on a live. I think I was watching you on a live,
Okay.
and you were talking. I can't remember what you were talking about. I think it was around the time um, that you had gotten your diagnosis, your cancer diagnosis. It was around that time, and I can't remember. And I think I said to Evelyn, "Well, I'm just gonna call you. What's your number?" Or something like that. Like I think I just typed it in there, and I think that's how it happened. I think that's when we had our first conversation. I even think I FaceTimed you. I don't even think we had a conversation on the phone.
Yeah, I think we FaceTime.
FaceTime, yeah. And so a lot of us would not be or be hesitant to be as bold as that. But what I've realized is when it comes to if you have a desire to connect with someone or to connect with people, you really have to open yourself up to that. And you know what? Let me answer some of these questions because I feel
Well,
like they're about
the
to.
comments is on fire today.
Okay, so let's start with Shanti. I think Shanti was the first one.
Yes.
So Shanti says, "What do you do when people that you want to be lifelong friends don't really do friendship the way you do?" That's a good question. What you think about that one, Evelyn?
Okay, so here's my thoughts. I mean, unfortunately, in any type of relationship, there's expectations on both sides, right? And so, to piggyback off what Patricia, just briefly said about, selecting your friends the way you would select a mate, it's kind of like if you meet a guy and oh, let me put my computer on do not disturb. Um, and you know that you're ultimately looking for marriage and he's like, I just want something casual, then you already know, like, it's not that he's wrong. He's just being honest about what he wants and you're being honest about what you want. And so part of selecting or cultivating relationship with friends is people who want the same kind of friendship that you want. Now, I'm not advocating that you go and cut the person off. It's almost just about having, you can have a conversation like it's kind of like what I just said. I had a friend reach out to me and was like, "Hey, we're cool, but we probably could be closer." And when she said that to me, I was like, "You're right." And then I started acting accordingly. So you've got a couple of different options here. You could be vulnerable with, that friend and be like, "Hey, I really like you. I think we have a good friendship." It's kind of like being in a relationship. It is like being in a relationship. It's like, I really think we could be good friends. What do you think? I mean, I don't know the right words. I'm not the best at that, but I hope you get what I'm trying to say. That you have a couple of options. You can have a conversation about it and express like the kind of friendships you're looking for, and see if they're on board. And they might be. It's just that they may not. I may just have never had that conversation about what your expectations of friends are, because I think we're really casual in our friendships. And so I think that's how our feelings get hurt a lot of times, because we don't set boundaries or expectations or hold each other accountable. And then also, if they're not open to it, it doesn't make them a bad person, doesn't mean you're a bad person, right? It takes work to be a quality lifelong friend. You have to be willing to go through the phases of life with someone, and some people may not have that bandwidth at that time, or may not have the desire to do that work, or their roster may already be full, for lack of a better phrase. And so, if that's the case, while it may not feel good, just know that there will be other women who are looking for the same type of friendship that you're looking for. So it's very similar to dating. Like, when you liked him and you thought he was cute and you thought y'all could be something, and he liked you, but he wanted something serious, and it's like, okay, it doesn't mean that life is over. It's like, okay, that kind of sucks, but there's somebody else who's going to want the same kind of friendship as you. So I hope that answered your question. Patricia, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like I mentioned earlier, liken it to dating, that both people have to be in the same place and value the same things. And if that person is not in a place, or they don't see friendship the way that you do, then, just like I would tell if you was a dude, I would tell you to move on. And that's the same way I would tell you in the situation with friendship, that it's okay that you guys don't see things the same way at this point in your life. It's okay to move on to someone who will value friendship the way you do, or see it the way you do.
And can I add this, Patricia?
Sure.
I also want to make sure that it's not something like a one-off thing, right? Because I don't want to give the illusion, like, the moment that there's a ripple in the friendship, that you discard them, right? So because part of wanting to have lifelong friends is knowing that at some point y'all are going to not see eye to eye, and at some point y'all are going to have disagreements, and pre-making the decision that I'm going to be more concerned about reconciliation, um and resolving this issue, than about, like, okay, well, you're not being everything I need you to be at every moment all the time. And I don't think that's what you're saying at all, but I just want to make sure I kind of put that out there, that you kind of got to know what your boundaries are. You got to know how much grace you're going to be willing to give. Because sometimes, and I think we're going to get to this, or we were talking about people being a priority. It's like, you got to know sometimes when like, you're still friends, but when you're on the back burner, you know what I mean? You got to know, and are you okay with that is you're going to move around, so in that way. I hope that was helpful.
Caribbean Curl says, quick question. How can I not feel hurt about some friends not prioritizing me? I don't want to sound selfish. I definitely feel I'm reasonable with giving my friends space, but just as I enjoy my solo time, it just feels like I am an afterthought. Or if they cancel, they don't make it up. So,
You want to go first?
yeah, let me say this, guys, and I don't want to. I definitely want to validate your feelings first. Let's start there. Um, your friend, you should value your friendships, like the people that you um, call friends, and should show them that in the way that the relationship calls for. Okay, let's start there. Um, but one thing I want to be really, 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 really careful about, right? And I see it happening all the time, and I know I've suffered from this as well, because I can definitely be that person that will go above and beyond, and then hold that other person accountable to where, like, I just killed the game. I'm all the way up here, and I expect you to meet me here at all times. I can be that person. I can be a little unforgiving in that way, and then resent the person because they have failed me. They disappointed me because they weren't able to be there for me in the way that I have been there for them. I think we should be careful about this, because, and I know you say that you're reasonable, right? But I just want you to, right? We're here to challenge each other. So I want you to look back into yourself first and think, am I being reasonable? What is going on in this person's life currently that may be more of a priority right now? How is this person proven to be good to me and good friend in the past, that I can sort of hold on to that while we're dealing with this moment in time where she's prioritizing something else? is there something or is there a way that I can serve her and support her in
Mhm.
this moment? I'll give you guys an example. I have a friend right now that was really, really supportive to me in the process of me getting married and all of this and stuff like that. Only for what, a year later, for her to be going through something in her personal life and has stepped back. And when I haven't heard from her, I'm calling her more. Like, I'm checking in with her more. Like, hey, can I come see you? Understanding that she's going through something right now and it's my turn to step up as a friend. So is it your turn right now to step up as a friend? What I want us to challenge us in is this sort of measurement, like this ruler, where it's like, okay, so I'm over here at 8 centimeters and you're over here at 4. You need to make it up by 4 because last time you canceled on me and then you didn't make it up, so I'm gonna take a centimeter off. Like we have to be our relationship shouldn't be built that way, like what I give and you give necessarily. That's not where the foundation in which that it should stand. And for those of you guys who are married, know this is a thing, right? And if you took a measurement, a ruler, after every single thing you did for your spouse, I mean, you'd be snatching out rulers every day. And that's really not a relationship is not about that and shouldn't be built on that. So that's the question I want to challenge you with. Now, that aside, if you are dealing with a person that is ghosting you in the truest sense, and there's nothing going on in her life, but she is stepping back for whatever reason, she has the right to do that.
Huh.
She has the right to do that. And it just may be time to step away from the relationship, and that's okay. Something bad doesn't have to happen. There doesn't have to be a fight. There doesn't have to be a blow up. I've had, and let me tell you, I can testify. Those are the worst, where there wasn't a fight, there wasn't a blow up. I've had friendships. I mean, my very, very, very best friend that I lost over no reason at all except for distance, us separating from each other just naturally. And sometimes that happens. And that's okay. That doesn't mean she's a bad person. Doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means it's time to move on. Those are my thoughts. What do you think, Evelyn?
So I I 100% agree with everything you said. And I have a follow-up question for Caribbean Curls, which is if I recall correctly, I think we've discussed this with you before. And so my question to you, and if I'm wrong, maybe it was somebody else, I apologize. But my question to you would be, are there areas in your life where you are not prioritizing you? Um, and the reason why I ask that is because when I'm prioritizing me, even if somebody's not prioritizing me, is not a huge deficit, right? I notice it, and I'm not saying that it's like good, but it's not this like I can't believe, you know what I mean? Because I'm not over functioning, right? I'm not over giving. I'm not doing the most, like Patricia said. I'm on 750 and they on 227. You know what I mean? So I would just I'm curious to know, are there areas in your life where you aren't prioritizing yourself? And then I will follow it up with, what does your, for lack of a better phrase, roster of friends look like? Because one of the most dangerous things that I did with a really good friend, and we are not friends anymore, unfortunately, and she did ghost me, which, like you said, which is like the worst,
Mm-hmm.
is that she was my end all be all friend. Like, she had to be the confidant, the counselor, the fun friend, the travel friend, the talk trash friend, the we're close to each other's family friend, all in one person. And, you know, what I can tell you as a older woman now is that you I think it's okay to have best friends, but the idea that one friend is going to be your everything that you need out of friendships, and I don't know if that's the case, but when they start to move around and create more friendships and relationships, and so that you can't be quote unquote in the number one spot all the time, it could possibly, if something like that is going on, could make you feel like they're not prioritizing you. Because I went through that with friends. I'm not trying to project. I'm just saying this could be a possibility, or maybe this could help someone else. And so when that friend started making other friends and we weren't like attached at the hip, like it started to feel like, are you putting me in the number three spot? Like, why aren't you this? Oh, you went to lunch with such and so. And learning that everything don't have to be a group activity. I have friends right now who are friends with each other, okay, and friends with me, but we don't always, all of us have to get together. If I want to just go to brunch with this friend, I'm just going to brunch with this friend. So, and it's not about trying to make the other people feel bad or be exclusion, because then we have our own thing and they have their own thing. Um, but that's also because my roster of friends is more balanced now, because I had that bad situation. It's also because I am prioritizing myself and not dependent upon them for my entertainment, for me to feel important, for me to feel whatever. Like it's very similar to a relationship. I'm not de- They add to my general happiness, but they don't create it. And I could be way off base, but so everything Patricia said plus, are there areas in your life where you're not prioritizing yourself, and what does your friend bench, your roster of friends look like? So that's all I got.
I think she started to answer the question here. So I see everyone else, but I just kind of want to close this thought. She says, yes, I've always been a people pleaser. I definitely was putting others first, as I feel it's so important to do things while you can, as you don't know what's around the corner. Hence, I give more. Maybe she's still typing.
Yeah, but I'm realizing there is a deficit. And don't worry, I have gotten just one friend that's everything. My roster of friends has reduced as I've stopped fighting for a relationship where no one fights. So it sounds like to me, Caribbean Curls, um, how can I say this in love? It sounds like there's a over functioning out of fear of not having friends. So it's like, oh, I gotta put my friends first. I gotta do things for, like you said, while I can, because you don't know what's around the corner. I don't know what that fear is about. And so sometimes when we do have a fear of being abandoned or losing something, sometimes we can almost hold on too tight.
Mm-hmm.
And when we do that, people will pull away, right, to be able to breathe. And so, um, you know, if there's some abandonment in your history, I would start there, because it's making you hold on real tight and it's making you over function, which is why you were talking like you feel exhausted and you don't feel like you're first, because you're probably doing so much. Um, and you don't have to perform to be accepted. I just want to say that one more time. You don't have to perform in your relationships to be accepted. And so I think when you can rest in, like, they like me because they like me, not because of what I do for them. Like, what you do for your friends is a bonus, but they like me for me. It might allow you to relax a little bit, and it takes that energy off. And they may not even be able to put their finger on it. And I'm not trying to blame you. I'm just saying this could be a possibility that you got phone calls. I had text messages. All good. So I mean, I don't know if I'm way off base here or whatever, but I just from the little that I can gather, is there some over functioning out of fear of being alone in friendships?
She also says, earlier on, says, I feel you, Patricia. I'm the same way. Are my expectations too high, or are these friends not too fond of me? So I'm gonna answer that question, and the answer is, are your expectations too high? I will say yes. I will say yes. And someone mentioned earlier in the chat reconciliation. I think our focus is, now that we know that you're over functioning. So we already know if your expectations are based on your over functioning, then your expectations are too high, right? And that's it. We have to allow people to be human, right? This is a completely different person that was raised in a completely different home and completely different people and had completely different experiences and possibly a different love language. that you're completely missing. And that still rings true even in friendships, where yours might be acts of service. I am bending over backwards to do this and that for you. And they're more about quality time. And you're like, you ain't doing nothing for me. Like, you're not showing up the way I'm showing up for you. Right? Meanwhile, you just have different love languages. And it's not that they're not prioritizing you. The same way, just as intentional as you are about reading all them books for this, marriage or this, boyfriend, and premarital counseling, and listening to your favorite gurus talk on YouTube about boys, like whatever, just as intentional as you are there, you should be intentional about your relationships. And this is a great way to sort of exercise that muscle of reconciliation, especially if you're single, because you will do that 30 times over a day when you're married. You know what I'm saying? So exercising that muscle, allowing people to be human and say, hey, and not stop measuring them. Again, this is my personality issue, right? Myers-Briggs, INFJs. What we do is we measure people, and it's internally. You don't have no idea what's going on, measuring people to this high standard, and later we resent you and check out in our mind about you, like, okay, so you're, without even letting the person be aware of the process, like, hey, it really disappointed me when I invited you to my graduation and you didn't show up, and you knew how important this was to me. I never used to have those conversations. I would just cut off in the head. Like, next thing you know, you don't hear from me. Next thing you know, I'm done. Next thing you know, whatever. Right? Not knowing that, oh, I'm sorry. Maybe the person just didn't know it was that important to you. Just didn't know it was that important to you. I dealt with this situation where I drove 4 hours to a graduation that was to a friend's graduation that I found out about the day before. She didn't even let me know that her graduation was the day before. I canceled all my plans and drove 4 hours to her graduation. You know what I mean? And then when it was time for her to be there for me, she was not. Okay. And so in my heart, I was like, done. Snip. Done. Like, I canceled my plans and I drove 4 hours to your graduation. But understanding that she just didn't know that that was that important to me, and because that's not the way she showed love, she saw it as a nice, oh, that's nice, that's cool that she did that, but that was it for her. That was the end of that for her. So understanding that sometimes there's just a miscommunication, and then if you love the person and this is someone that you truly value, make them aware of what's going on and work through that. Work on, I don't want to say lowering your standards, but having a realistic expectation of people, allowing them to be human, and giving them the chance to work through it. Now, if you have a conversation, they're just like, I don't care about your feelings. What you mean? I didn't want to go to your graduation because I felt some type of way about you graduating. Then that's a different conversation. But allowing people to be human, being vulnerable with people, like, hey, this hurt my feelings. You know what I mean? And this made me feel some type of way. And this made me feel bad. And people who love you don't want you to feel bad and will sit there and listen to the whys. You know what I mean? Especially if it's in an environment where it's not sort of accusatory. So let me go up because I feel like we missed.
And let me say this while you go up. I want to introduce you to the concept, ladies, of premeditated vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you're probably like, what is that? So you just heard Patricia say, like, oh man, I really wish, that you would have been there for this or whatever. That's like reactionary vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
If you know something is important to you and you know your friend that may not be their strong suit, let them know. It's like, hey, my graduation is coming up and it would mean so much to me if you could make it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, premeditated vulnerability, right? Almost like setting your friends up for success. I know my love language is quality time. I know it. I was on a phone with a friend last night till 3 in the morning. We was like, girl, we got to get off the phone. Okay. Patricia and I will talk for 4 hours, won't be eating, be like, girl, I'm about to pass out. I'm so hungry. Cause we just chat, 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 chat. Because quality time, specifically conversations, hence the live streams, is my love language, right? So, but if my love language was, which it is, but let's just say my number one was gifts, right? And you knew like your birthday was coming up, be like, you know what? I always feel so great when you pick out things for me, blah blah blah. Listen, they have the option if they can, they will, or whatever. But it's like sometimes you have to give people a chance to succeed. You have to set them up for success
Yes.
versus sitting back and waiting for them to be like, let me see what she gonna do because she always let me down, and then I got to follow up her. Like it's like setting that intention, but because if your intention is you want lifelong friends, then you can give them the cheat code. You know what I mean? And then they have the option to rise to the occasion. Now, back to Patricia's point, if either they can't rise to the occasion or they choose not to rise to the occasion, that's up to them. And then you get to decide how much grace you want to give and let people be human, right? I had a good friend get married, and I was at the wedding, but I wasn't at her bridal shower. And I didn't really know that we were that close at the time. And at the time, I couldn't afford to buy her what I wanted off of her registry, right? And so I did not go to the bridal shower because in my mind I was like, I'm not about to show up to this bridal shower empty-headed. And she called me later and was like, I was so sad when I didn't see you there. And I felt so bad. And I told her what was going on. She was like, girl, I don't care about that, right? But that vulnerability, I should have went anyway. So I said all that to say premeditated vulnerability.
SJ, I'm gonna get to your questions, but I feel like I just want to ride this topic out. Where Jamsuri says definitely struggle with the measuring thing, taking things personal, and having all these conversations with myself. Big mad. Erica T says I agree with Evelyn. My therapist told me the same thing about over functioning in relationships stemming from my abandonment issues. That's really really big. A Star says I'm having a problem. I have a problem with thinking things are common sense and when it comes to certain things. Later on, she says certain close friends should already know. And that's the already know thing that we have to work on. And I feel you, girl. I was there.
Me too.
I was there. What you have to realize is you have to be intentional about you. And no one lives in your brain. No one lives
Agree.
in your
Even
brain.
right.
And people are literally separate from you. They can know you, experience you, but every moment, every day, every week, every year, you evolve, right? And sometimes you have to catch people up to where you are. And like she said, being premeditated, not just saying, hey, my graduation's on Saturday, but to be like, girl, this is big for me. You know how long I've worked towards this. It would mean the world to me if you would be there, right? And then if she doesn't come, that's a different story, right?
Right.
But to go above and beyond and me go drive 4 hours, that's a decision that I made, right? Without her telling me, to be honest, that I had to come. Without her telling me that it was really important to her. That's a decision that I made, right? And then I turn around and not tell her that it's important to me for her to be there. Not to tell her that I would love it if she came, but just to send a simple invite and she should know because of what I did for her, she should reciprocate it in the way that I gave it to her. That's not fair, guys. Like, listen, we have to grow up just a little bit with these mentalities. It's just not fair. You have to make people aware of what's going on with you. You have to be able to be vulnerable with people and give people access to your mind, to your emotions, to your belief system. Right? A lot of us don't even let people know. Like, at least I believe that friends supporting in each other in this way is very important. And letting people aware of this. No, I get you, girl. We're all a work in progress. All a work in progress. But I just want to challenge you guys' thinking just a little bit when it comes to this friend thing. If you get up and drive 4 hours, it better be from the goodness of your heart because you love that person, right? And if something is important to you, you make them aware of it. You know what I mean? Because just like Evelyn's friend, there's some girls that have been like, you better not show up to my thing without empty handed, without no gift. You know what I'm saying? Like, you better not. And now it was a misstep on Evelyn's part, but now she understands this woman rathers me show up for her than come with the gift in hand. And that's a lesson now she can use toward the future. Allow people to mess up, allow them to disappoint you, allow them, because everyone is human, and whether you realize it or not, as perfect as you think, and I'm talking to myself, as perfect as you, as good of a friend you feel like you are, you have done it at some point in time. There has been a time where that person was crying on a pillow that you didn't pick up the phone and call, right? Because you didn't know what was going on with that person. And just like she can't hold it against you, you can't hold it against her. We just have to learn to be more gracious. So anyway, let's go up to SJ's question.
Wait, let me say this one.
Okay, go ahead.
So to Patricia's point about ever evolving and changing, I heard this couple say this. They were like, your phone updates all the time, right? And people do too. They were like, but the difference is that your phone gives you a notification. Hey, you go to bed tonight,
Mm,
and when you wake up in the morning, we're gonna make all these changes. In human relationships, sometimes we don't even know when we're updating ourselves,
right.
right? And so giving people the grace to realize, go like, oh, there's no longer an ear jack here. Oh, there's no longer a home button here. Oh, computers don't even come with USB ports anymore, right? Like knowing that sometimes we don't even know that we're updating till something happens and it's made us aware, like, oh, I've changed in this area. I didn't used to need this. Now I need this. Now that I know, but this is why you also have to cultivate yourself, because if you don't know your love language because you haven't said, either you never heard of it, or maybe you never read the book, or maybe somebody told you but you was like, I don't really need it. How you expect somebody to love you in your love language if you don't know your love language? If you haven't taken time to learn about your personality bends and traits, and what you need and what you like and what you don't like, how you expect somebody else to be a mind reader? Because what we're really asking when we say you should know is, you should be able to read my mind.
Mhm.
You're not telepathic. You can't see these words floating across my forehead. Girl. But here's the thing, we do it in any kind of relationships. We do it with our parents, we do it with our siblings, we do it with our friends, we do it with people that we're dating or relationships in. And then we're like, I don't understand how you can't read my mind.
Mhm.
Now, even when we go up to a drive through, we got to tell them what we want, but we don't pull up to the window and be like, you know what I want. I've been here before. They're like, I've slept since then. You're going to have to tell me.
Mm.
And okay, go ahead.
Yes, I love it. Ooh, I love
Girl,
this.
we don't went down a tangent.
Girl, we both done had our rants. SJ says, on the topic of finding friends, where's a good friend place to meet guys? I don't know how those two things connect, SJ. I'm just gonna say, not too keen on the ideas of dating apps personally. Just after some ideas, including options post lockdown. Okay,
I have a real simple answer to this question, but
go.
go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Everywhere. Good men abound. So let me say this. Wherever you like to go and the things that you're into is probably a good place to meet men. Now, let me soften this up a little bit. And I don't want to make these assumptions about you, so I'm gonna talk about me, okay? When I was stuck in the Bermuda Triangle, or the Bermuda Square, work, church, gym, home, work, church, gym, home, I was always like, where do you go to meet guys? Where are they? I can't find them anywhere. Well, because I was in the Bermuda Triangle.
Mm.
Okay. And then when I just said, when my focus went to, and this, I want to be careful with this, when my focus went to enjoying my life and doing the things that I enjoy, I looked up and men are everywhere. They abound. So, when if there's a place that you don't like to go, don't go to that place. So that might not be that guy. So, for example, if people use the club, for example, if you don't genuinely like to go to the club, then the guy that's at the club may not be your guy, right? But if you genuinely like indoor rock climbing, okay, and you're doing that on a consistent basis, catch the keyword, consistent basis, okay, then you could potentially meet somebody there. But is your life full of interest? What are you doing besides work, gym, home, brunch with the girlfriends? What else? So my particular take on it is they abound. They're everywhere. I've met people in grocery stores. I've had people slide into my DMs. I've met them at church. I've met them at friends get-togethers, birthday parties, getting my oil changed, like in line to like. So for me, Patricia might have a different answer. Usually, my limited experience when I see that question, I'm always curious about, tell me where you're going, and are you going places that have people of the opposite sex?
No, I completely agree, and I really don't have anything to add. I mean, they they are everywhere. You know, they are not hiding under a rock. They are out there living their lives, just like you should be out there living yours. And if you are, you will encounter some. Um, the idea, and I agree with Evelyn, going to those places um, that embody who you are and your interests are best. I wouldn't just hit up the club even though you don't usually go, but you just want to meet guys, because that's probably not where you'll find the one that's for you. Because if you don't usually go, he probably don't, usually go. And so, but also, we talked about it last week, is that sort of spirit of openness, and keeping your eyes open, and just the power of a made up mind and your perception. If you have a perception that there are no good men, and that there's no good men out there, then you won't see them because your perception won't allow you to. But if you walk around in life and with this sort of abundance mindset, there will be girl, they just will start
Everywhere.
popping up. I promise you, the other day, and no lie, no joke, this is just to talk about the mindset, right? You can be like, oh, well, I don't know where to go to find it. I was getting my mail the other day. Guy passing by. Stop. Hey, good morning. How are you? Outside of my doorstep. You know what I'm saying? And of course I'm married, whatever. But they're there.
I
They
just had
are
somebody
there.
slide in my DMs 4 days ago because he saw me in a group talking about restaurants and was like, I just thought, I at least would try, shoot my shot. You know what I'm saying? You seem interesting. And I'm at home because I'm quarantined. And so, to Patricia's point about the abundant mindset, think of it like this. Y'all know I come with the analogies. Think about when either you buy a new car or you want a new car, right? You never saw anybody with that car in that color until you got it or until you say you want it. All of a sudden, it's like everybody got this car. Yesterday, nobody had it
Yep.
in your mind until you were focused on it. I remember listening to the Brawn Goddess, aka Life Coach San, always say, "There's so many good men running around here loose," and I heard her say that so many times that it changed my mindset. And then I realized, girl, there are so many good men running around here loose. They're everywhere. They abound. They're not hiding in one particular place. They're living their life just like you should be living yours. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt,
No,
Patricia.
it's okay. But let's address the rest of his question. Not too keen on the ideas of dating apps personally, which is fine. You don't have to be. Just and then after some ideas, including post lockdown ideas. What you think about post lockdown ideas?
I'm still on lockdown, so I'll let you know afterwards. But I feel like it's kind of the same applies. But here's the thing, like Patricia said, you don't have to do dating apps. But like I said, somebody just slid in my DMs the other day because I was socializing online,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I was in a group that's about my interests. I love food. This group was about like black owned restaurants in Dallas. I was in there being nosy, seeing who I could order takeout from. I got a chef friend. He owns a restaurant. I was, sharing about his restaurant. That's how I encountered this person, right? So it's the principle applies. The details almost don't matter. The principle applies. So I've met people because I'm in groups on social media that fall in line with my interest, right? So whatever you're into, do that. I would challenge you though, because if you're still struggling with ideas, what I would really focus on is cultivating a really flavorful life, right? Like what are you like what are you into? What are you doing? Where are you going on a consistent basis? And that will answer the question for you. But if you sit down and you write it down and you got like two places, and one of them places is a place where only women go, like, the beauty salon or something like that, then that's going to be a challenge. So the way I solved that issue for myself was I was like, well, girl, you ain't going to the places you like. Or even if I wasn't going consistently,
Mm.
right? Oh, it was a one-off, I went to this one concert and this one thing. Well, if you think about how you met people, friends or boyfriends in school, is because you probably encountered them multiple times, right? Because y'all were frequenting similar things, right? Conversely, there's people that you probably went to school with that you never met because y'all never crossed paths because y'all had different interests. So my suggestion to you would be, even post lockdown, is what are the things that you're into and their new expressions of experiences if they're not meeting in person, and how are you doing it? Girl, people out here virtually dating.
Yeah.
It's a thing, okay? I haven't done, but you know what I mean, because they're going to these virtual networking things and these virtual conferences, and they're connecting with people. So it's really about cultivating your life, cultivating your interest, and turning it in on you, and then you will start to see that they abound.
She says, to be fair, I'm asking for my cousin currently. She's extremely lonely, especially with COVID. She keeps telling me she wishes she had someone, so I'm supporting her as she is low currently. Outside of this, she's really needy and exhausting. I wouldn't call her. Oh, how come I? Oh,
An energy vampire,
yeah,
but
vampire, but she's full on and it's always tiresome. I require recovery time after. How can I support without being burnt out? This is a good question.
um I feel like we're skipping over other people's questions, but I will say this.
Mhm.
I have a lot to say. I got a lot to say about that. So, do you want to answer that now, Patricia, or you want to go back up and then come back down?
Did we miss a question?
We missed some questions. Did we not?
I thought we were up to date.
Okay, we might be out. Let me just. I'm a scroll because I like chat's on fire today and I love it. Uh, oh, I think these are just return comments. Okay,
Huh?
so let me read this again.
Hi, G
The
Angel. Sorry. Yes.
oh,
Love from Belgium. What's up? Go ahead.
I think part of the problem is in the question itself. Meaning, and I know I'm looking now, but I'm reading it. There's a lot here. Um, when you said she's really needing and it's exhausting, Lord, I need Patricia's diplomacy here. Y'all know I love y'all, so I'm trying to figure out the best way to say that. That is the crux of the issue. Is that if her neediness is exhausting. Now, let me say this: we need human interaction. So I'm not trying to um, deny that or make it seem like she's out of place. We were designed to be in community. We were designed to need each other. That's a basic human need. Um, from what I'm gathering from your statement is that it's like a draining kind of neediness. And that means that there's something else going on. And that even if she did have a man in her life, for lack of a better phrase, she probably would suck him dry because she's trying to fill a hole that probably another person cannot fill. And that's the issue,
Mhm.
right? So I'd be curious as to um, well, I don't necessarily need to know her backstory or what happened or why she feels so lonely, but I would be like, what is she doing in her own life um to be full as a woman? Like what is she doing to cultivate her own life to be full, because that energy of being like a black hole of like neediness will actually do the opposite. It will repel people, just like you said, like, how can I support without being burned out? Like, I'm trying to support you but you're burning me out. Everybody's going to feel that energy even if they don't know how to put words to it. So I would say, I don't know, I mean, I don't want to impose, but I don't know, SJ, if you're a believer or not. Like, there's some, I would pray for her,
Mhm.
because there's something internally that needs to be filled that I don't think she's going to be able to get from an external source. And so I think I commend you for trying to, um, support her and ask these questions, but the solution you're looking for is not the right peg for the right hole. Meaning, even if she got into a relationship, you can be, if you choose wrong or if your motivation is not in a healthy place, you can be with somebody and be lonely. Let's be
Oh
clear.
yeah.
Right. So, and then that person to be burned, and they will feel exhausted. Like, if y'all are cousins and she wants to be in an intimate relationship with somebody, that person will be more exhausted than you. So there's something deeper going on why she feels extremely lonely. And here's the thing, she might be an extrovert. Um, and extroverts are having a much harder time than introverts. But I would say, even regardless of personality types, I've got extroverted friends who have figured out how to make it work, so they're not as lonely. COVID may have triggered something else that was already there, right? Of her feeling lonely. So, Patricia, that's what I got.
She says, unfortunately, childhood trauma and abandonment, so I understand why her behavior is so, but I feel guilty that I'm all she has. And so, listen, as wonderful as you might be to her, you cannot be everything to her. And so, pointing her in the direction um, that will serve her the best, and that's in this case to me therapy right now, is addressing that childhood trauma, addressing that abandonment and those issues, because they will spill over, as you can see, into all of her relationships. And a man ain't gonna fix it. He just won't. And so making sure that you say, like, hey, these are some issues that I see, and I really care about you, and I love you, and I want to see you happy, and I want to see you at your best. And I suggest that you get some therapy to discuss and to work through this childhood trauma and this abandonment, because I feel like it's spilling over into our relationship. Um, and so people are talking about boundaries, which I think is important. I think is important. Um, but if this is your family, if this is your cousin, this is your friend, more than just setting up boundaries, um, is making sure that she knows that there's an option and that there is help, and that she should be an active part in her healing. I feel like is an important step. It's an important part of the process, and hooking her up is only going to put a band-aid on the stage 4 pressure ulcer, right? And as we know, or may not know, a band-aid ain't gonna do nothing for that. And so making sure that she gets to the root of the issue so that she can have healthy relationships all around, not just with you. So yeah, somebody else just mentioned it, because the comment section is like a little bit behind us. Just mention therapy, recommending therapy is good. Um, uh-huh.
Yeah, she needs therapy, and it's very delicate to bring up therapy to someone. I don't know if you guys follow. I think it's Nitra B on Instagram. She's a therapist, and she actually has a post about how to gently recommend therapy to someone, because you almost have to come at it from an angle like, I love you, but I'm not equipped
Mm-hmm.
to help you with the needs that you have at the moment, right? Like, almost like, I love you, but I'm not your therapist. You know what I mean? Like, don't say that. But I think it's Nitra B or Nitra WB or something like that on Instagram. She's a therapist. And here's the thing, you can present people the solution, but whether or not they take it is on them, right? They have to be ready. They have to be, yeah, they have to be ready, for lack of a better phrase. They have to want to fill the hole, right? Or even know that hey, I know you want this, but that's just a symptom that something else is happening. And some people are ready, which is great. Some people aren't. I had a friend for years who had some severe childhood trauma, and she knew exactly how it was affecting her in her adult life. And she didn't want to go get therapy. She was like, I know it's running me ragged. I know it's making me do this and act like this and do things I wouldn't normally do or whatever. I don't want to go. I was just like, I don't really know what to tell you yet. You know what I mean? So um, check to see if she's ripe. And to Patricia made a really good point, and I just want to, like kind of put an emphasis on it. She needs to be the number one advocate for her healing.
Mm-hmm.
She needs to be the number one participant, right? So if she's just at home wallowing in loneliness and you're out trying to ask questions and get resources and bring her stuff back and da 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 da, and she's not like equally as hungry for her own healing, you're gonna have to give her space until she's ready. Otherwise, you could be over functioning, and then end up resenting her. You see how this comes full circle? So yeah.
I just want to bring up this point. Welcome, Miss Carter 78. Welcome, Lisa. Awesome. Oh, somebody
So that's
put an IG. Oh, awesome. I want to make this point because we were talking about friends and expectations, right? So, what if SJ's cousin was the friend, the needy, overbearing, exhausting friend? And she is basing how much SJ liked her or loved her or the relationship based on her expectations. And now in this situation, her expectations are based on her trauma, right? And this is important why earlier I said, guys, you have to be able to check yourself, right? Because we are fallible, right? I know your ego wants to protect you and make you think that you're perfect and that you can do no wrong, right? Or you can do little wrong. But we have to be able to check ourselves to realize what may be really happening. Am I acting out of my trauma? Am I acting out on my trauma, or am I acting out of my loss, my abandonment? Am I acting out of those situations? Am I acting out of my ego, right? And make a serious check on that, and then moving forward, making people aware and making them an active part in what's going on with you and what's going on in your head. So I just want to point that out, guys, that we have to realize that people are human and that they go through things, and sometimes they unintentionally hurt you, unintentionally disappoint you, and that will happen in life no matter who the person is. And so um, allowing the right situation, allowing the person to be human and to grow a healthy relationship. You don't get that day one, unfortunately. It's just not how life works. But to work through it, to apologize and to reconcile, to have good moments and then have low points and then work through those points and stuff like that. So yeah, any other questions? Let me see. SJ says, I wish it's just quite heavy stuff. I wish someone else could share her burden. And it's what she wants. Yes. Oh, it is what she wants. Okay, so that's good. That's good that she wants to be an active part in her healing. And so making sure that you connect her to or recommend therapy or books like Miss R 2020 said, books that can help her get started on that process or to continue that process of healing, and so that she can have healthier relationships. Let's
wow.
see. Are there any other questions that I missed? If there are any other questions, y'all, drop them in the chat. This has been a good conversation today. I'm glad we decided to talk about this instead of the other thing.
Yes. Feels like right on time.
hmm
Like, the chat been on fire today.
Yeah.
Ladies, let us know. I know there's a little bit of a delay. If you have any more questions about friendship, I mean, we were going to talk about, I would obviously being intentional about friends as an adult, how to make friends as an adult, expectations of your friends. I think we've covered all of that. Oh,
So
that's a
One more thing I want to say before we answer this other question is tomorrow, I said this early in the chat, but tomorrow at noon, we're going to be talking about the jealous friend, the competitive friend. So if you guys want to hear more about her and how to deal with her, then tune into my channel tomorrow at noon. So SJ says, one more question I've been thinking about. Would you be happy to take the COVID vaccine? I'm worried the field I work in may force it. So, what are force it? So, what's some excuses against it, or I guess what are my sort of thoughts on it, right? Miss R 2020 Therapy for Black Girls. Yes, I follow that page actually.
You want to go for? I mean, you're the medical professional, because what my answer is going to be so not medicinal. I feel like SJ is trying to set us up. Like SJ,
Was it her last time that tried to do this to us too?
I feel like you trying to turn this, because vaccines is can be a very political conversation. I'm gonna say it's people's personal choice. That's what I got. That's all I got.
So I will try to only say what I'm comfortable with saying. I will say this. Okay, so let me give you guys context. She says not a setup, but it's deeply worried. And you know what? It's a valid concern. Okay, I'm a nurse. I'm gonna try to speak from that place first. Okay, vaccines are supposed to help you with immunity, right? In a situation like COVID, where this is a current new issue, they're trying to create something that will prevent or help you fight if exposed, a vaccine. Um, because if this is new, there is some concern because it hasn't been well researched, well tested, and so people have concerns about something that hasn't been researched, well tested, that doesn't have a strong sort of evidence base. And I think that should be a concern, right? That it hasn't been tested for a long period of time, that this is a new, illness. We don't know really how long it'll be around or anything like that. And so there is a concern. I think there is a general side eye right now for this administration. And so people just don't trust what's happening. Um, they don't trust the media. They don't trust the propaganda. They don't trust what's being pushed. And I think all of that is valid. What I can say now from Patricia's standpoint is that it's your body and you only get one. You don't get any do-overs in this world. And so whatever decision that you make, be as educated as you can, be on it, pray on it, and do the thing that gives you the most peace. That's what I will say. SJ, I feel you in that it may be a part of your job to do this. If you are in a situation where you encounter children, elderly, or sick people, you might have to, right? Just like the flu vaccine, those of you guys who work in the healthcare field know that they've made it so difficult to not get the flu vaccine. It used to be you could not get it for religious reasons, which was mine because I don't eat pork and I don't ingest anything with pork in it. And so they make it the vaccine with pork, right? But then they came up with a different version that doesn't have pork in it. It's attached to reimbursement. So now it's attached to money. How the percentage of your employees that get the vaccine is attached to the money that you get from Medicare and Medicaid. And so it's created this situation where you have managers stalking you about the flu vaccine. And so people are worried that COVID will do that as well. SJ says, if my manager says I must, what is a reasonable reason to not have it? I don't know what that will be. I don't know what that will be. And because it's like a pandemic situation, I don't know if this will be an exception where it'll really get to the point where it's like you have to, or you're out, or you can't work. I don't know. But whatever decision that you make, be prepared to deal or defend that decision. So that's how I felt about it. Was that too much? Did I say too much, Evelyn?
I think you were spot on because
Okay.
yeah, I know when to be quiet. Because I'm not a medical professional,
Mm-hmm.
and I do know that, to your point, there's just a lot going on in the world right now. To your point, there's a lot of distrust on multiple facets for multiple people for multiple reasons. And so I do think it's absolutely fair to be concerned, to be hesitant, to want to play ahead like, hey, this could be something that happens to me in the next couple of months. What are my options? Um, I'm going to say something non vaccine related that's going to be controversial. Patricia, if you don't want to do a live with me after I say what I say, I totally understand. I still love you. You know what I'm saying? We still friends. And this is not an option for everybody. So when I say this, I want to be careful that I'm not coming across as there's one way to do life or being judgmental or anything like that. But I will say, um, when I talk about curating a life, I mean that in every sense of the word. And so, whatever you really want to do, you always have a choice. You always have a choice. Now, choices also come with the results of those choices. Like, and I'm trying to tread really lightly here, but it's like whatever you want to do or don't want to do in life. If you want to go up and smack somebody in their face, you can do it, but there's consequences, right? Like, but you can do it. Okay. So, I was having this conversation with a friend who is married and has children, but her children are homeschooled. And, for different things, some people are concerned about schools opening back up, right? And all that kind of stuff. And she was like, she knew that there were certain choices that she either did want to make or didn't want to make. And so she started building her life accordingly so that she always felt like she had the option. So I would say, whether it's this or something else, to the best of your ability, put yourself in situations or start to create situations where for the most part you can make the kind of choices that you want to make. I know I'm being really vague, but I think you can smell what I'm cooking. You know, if it's that going to be that much of a rub, right? So I would say for me, I'm grateful that I don't have to take the flu vaccine. For me, I've had the flu twice. It's pure trash, okay? But so I'm like that's all I'm gonna say because otherwise I'm gonna get myself in trouble. But that's all I got.
I have no problem with that comment
Okay.
at all. What I will say, which I think it would be even more telling, and I say this not for any reason because I don't want this to fall on deaf ears, but to sort of support what Evelyn has said is that you always have a choice. Don't make yourself feel like I will say this. Nope, I won't say that.
I feel like no.
I remember when I was put in a situation about where I felt like I had to do something and I did it and I cried. Like literally I cried. And this wasn't like life changing or whatever, but just the mere fact that I I felt like I was backed into a corner and I acquiesced was so heartbreaking to me because I told myself like how can I put myself in a situation where I allowed someone to back into a corner, and then I didn't choose the thing that I wanted
So
because I felt stuck, right? And that was an illusion, because at the end of the day, I could have said no, right? And understanding that no may come with a whole lot of things. And I'm only saying this for those of you guys who may be listening and may be thinking, I don't want to do it, or I don't want to do it right away. I want to see how it goes first with other people, if it even works first with other people, where it's research, and then I can decide on whether that's something I want to do. Because what I realize is some of y'all may be taking care of your mom. Some people may be taking care of your dad, and you might be all right, but the people that you may be around may be, sort of really, really vulnerable. And so, but you want to wait and see, and how it play. I get it. You just don't know right now, and that's okay. You have the opportunity to say no. Recently, I had to leave my job in healthcare, right? Because of a no that I decided to hand out. And so, because of that no, I had to step away from my job. So, realizing, yes, that it happens, right? And guess what? I'm all right. I got a food on my table. I got a roof over my head. I got somewhere to lay, and it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. Don't make anyone make you feel like you don't have a choice. You always have a choice. Debbie says, I'm a nurse and an introvert, and talking drains the life out of me. This has made it hard for me to make friends, and coworkers think I'm always mad. Any advice? Thanks. That's from Debbie Jean.
Debbie, my question before I can respond would be, tell me why talking drains you. I will say this: I'm an extreme introvert. Small talk drains the life out of me. Like super surface, how's the weather? Now that drains me. You may not be like me, but I'm always looking for the question behind the question. Tell me why it drains you so much, because I can't really, like, maybe suggest something, because I need to know why it's so draining to you, right?
uh, while she's doing that, I feel like I want to wait till she answers that before I start answering that question. So let's move on to Miss R 2020, then we'll come back to this question once Debbie Jean answers. Miss R 2020 says, are you ladies making new friends during this time? If so, where/how? Am I making new friends right now? No. But what I can tell you is I'm strengthening the relationships that I already have right now. That's for sure. Are you making new friends, Evelyn?
Yes. And I am like hardcore quarantining, meaning I leave my house about once a month. Okay. So like if I'm not in the front yard, like that's about as far as I'm going. Okay. So um but here's the thing, that's intentional. So Patricia has mentioned before, I'm an entrepreneur, right? And so not all of my friends are entrepreneurs. And so sometimes I want a business bestie to talk like deep, deep business with, right? And so I'm in some programs that I invested in, financially invested in, and there are women in those programs who are about at the same level I am, or maybe a slightly ahead of me or slightly behind me in business. And I've intentionally joined their like unofficial group to check in once a week, every 2 weeks as part of this. And that now, am I being friends with the whole group? No, but there's like one or two people that I can see myself, like we're kind of, we'll chat a little bit outside of the chat, right? Like I see the relationship growing, but that was by choice. I said to myself, I have a need, which is I love entrepreneurship. I want to talk about entrepreneurship. I want somebody who's in a similar space. I do have another friend who's in entrepreneurship, right? But I was like, who's in the kind of programs that I'm in, to talk about like the program that we're in and all that kind of stuff. So even though this segment of women wasn't mandated by the program I am, we have a different set, right? They invited me, And as much as I was like, okay, another group, oh my gosh, okay, there's gonna be more time on my calendar. I accepted the invitation because I said, well, I can at least see. And so I do see something blossoming there. So, but that's one of my interests. So going back to my earlier point, it's one of my interests. I'm also I just started dipping my toe into luxury cosmetics. And two of my friends, to Patricia's point, I'm deepening my relationship with them because we have gone down a luxury beauty rabbit hole. So, which is why I was on the phone with one of our friends last night. She was showing me her purchase from Harrods of London that came in and all this stuff, right? So I think I'm doing both. I think there are some small embers or some small seedlings of a friendship or friendships that are developing. But then, to Patricia's point, I'm also deepening the friendships that I currently have. I mean, y'all are watching one of that right now, right? Like Patricia and I've been friends for years, but like having this weekly girl chat deepens our friendship, right? So I'm a little bit of both. Yeah.
Debbie G responded, but I'm sorry, I'm just being a little bit more picky. I want you to open it up even more if you can. She says, yes, small talk and can't deal with the competition that comes with nursing. Can you talk a little bit more about that competition that comes with nursing? And you said deep conversation. Yes, I can go on and on. So, what are the deep conversations that you are avoiding? Or is it that you prefer deep conversations? Just open it up just a little bit more, right? And as you do that, I'll move on to Blessed. What's up, Blessed? Um, what do you do if you had a misunderstanding with a friend and apologize and had a vulnerable conversation in which you believe all was okay and they proceeded to exclude you as their close friend? What was the point of being vulnerable? And now I feel like the worst person.
I'm gonna say this, and this, Patricia, you're gonna have to give like the counter answer to my answer. So like I'm pre-telling you what you have to say. I was the friend who did that to a friend.
Mm,
So I had a friend, and we had an exchange that did not go well. She apologized. Um, we quasi had a conversation about it, and then I went on to exclude her as my friend. Let me give you my reasoning. I'm not saying that this is this person's reason. Let me give you my reasoning. Because of what transpired was so hurtful to me, um, that I was like, how did we get this far? Like it wasn't like a okay, you did something and it kind of hurt me and it kind of made me mad and I'm mad for a second and whatever. It was like, oh, this is a symptom, or this is this manifestation is a realization of something that's way deeper. And it was so hurtful to me that I was just like, we didn't have the kind of conversation that I wanted to have and really dig up the root. And so because of that, I just decided to exclude her. Um, right or wrong, that was my choice. That I am also the same person that will say, don't be quick to dispose of people, but I'm also the same person is there are things that can happen. There are things that people can say they can do that are like relationship severing, right? But that's different for every person, right? And so, whether it's like I said, family, dating, relationship, people know the things that they can do or say that, like think about this, if you say that one thing to that one friend, that you will cut them so deep that y'all might be beyond repair, right? And so, but here's the thing, what that thing might be for you might be different than that person. So this is an example of, could it be that whatever transpired, but that person, they may not even be angry, they had the conversation, accepted your apology, but they may have not been interested in reconciliation, like y'all resolved that situation, but they may not have been interested in reconciliation. That's hurtful. I mean, that hurts. um but it's not outside the realm of possibilities, unfortunately. And unfortunately, because we all are human, it is also their option, if you will. to take that course of action, even when you thought, oh, I thought all was okay. And here's the thing, I resolved that issue, that situation with that person, and was not interested in reconciliation. So I'm giving you, I don't know if that helps, but I'm giving you just a perspective of somebody who's been on the other side of that equation. Now, Patricia can give you some wonderful advice on how to navigate it, because I'm pretty sure that wasn't helpful. Um,
I think it is. I think it's helpful to illustrate the fact that people have a choice, and that if they want to walk out of your life, let them. And I don't think you should see, like, what's the point of being vulnerable? I don't think we should see vulnerability that way. I think anytime when you open up your heart, there's a risk. Um, but you should really be focused on being content with being true to yourself and true to your emotions and your feelings, and not so much like I'm being vulnerable to get this or to get that necessarily. You said you apologized and you had a vulnerable conversation. To me, that really covers all the bases. And if she still wants to exclude you, like Evelyn did for her friend, she has the right to do that. And unfortunately, it's a lost relationship. And that's okay. That's okay, guys. Two people can part ways, have a misunderstanding. She may not be to the point in her life, maybe, where she can reconcile and move on, like truly forgive, reconcile, move on. Or she may be making the conscious decision that this was a non-negotiable for me, and I want to dead this here, and she has the choice to do that, and yes, it hurts, yes, it's hurtful, um, but you have to move on. So she says, what can one do now, and move on. And that's starting with acceptance, accepting the fact that she has the right to do that, accepting the fact that this once was, and now it is no longer. And there are plenty other people, plenty other women out there that I can connect on this level that will be willing to reconcile when I mess up or when there's a misunderstanding, that's willing to be vulnerable with me and that values the same things that I value. There are plenty of the fish in the sea. And so I will be able to find a valuable friendship to me, that's valuable to me outside of this person. And so allowing her to do her. If she wants to hit you up every once in a while and you're okay with seeing her, then see her. But realizing where it ends, you know what I mean, and realizing that it no longer is what it was. So no longer having that expectation for that relationship. What do you think, Evelyn?
yeah, no, I agree. And allowing yourself to go through the grieving process. When a lot of times you hear people talk about like grieving the loss of a boyfriend or grieving the loss of a parent or even grieving the loss of a pet and the stages of, anger and frustration and denial or whatever, but we don't really talk about like when friendships end because of a choice.
Mm.
And sometimes that can hurt deeper, right? Because it's like this person intentionally was like, you know what, I thought about it and I'm out. And it's just like, okay, right? So I've been on both. I've been on the giving end of that. I've been on the receiving end of that. And so to Patricia's point about, accepting, it's like, allow yourself to be hurt by that. Allow yourself to be frustrated by that. Allow it to be like, dang, you know what I'm saying? Wow, that's it. But just don't live there permanently and then get to, well, you live and you learn. I think, like I mentioned before, that where I had the friend where she was the end all be all, when she left, right? Part of my moving on process was, what was my role in it? Okay. Now, I have a philosophy that a lot of people don't agree with, is that it always takes two. It may be 99% and 1%, 80-20, 70-30, whatever the case may be. But that's the way I was able to move on from her. Was one, yes, I knew that she did some things that I wasn't happy about, and that's how we got to that moment in time. But then I also said, but for us to get to the point where we're exiting, at least it's been my experience, it's usually not a one-time event. It's usually a series of things that have happened over time, either addressed or unaddressed. And so I kind of went introspective and said, what can I learn from this? Right. How can I be a better friend, even if I wasn't in the wrong in that moment? But like, what can I learn from this? And what it does is it takes the resentment off of them, because I'm not focusing on them, because I realize we all have our own work to do. And so focusing on me, like, what can I learn about this? And that's when I realized, like, well, you were like, she had to be your everything, and that can be exhausting. And not necessarily blaming myself for the friendship ending, but also saying, there was some type of codependent relationship here, um good or bad. And so what was my part of that? And that helped me to move on over time.
Love it. Love it. Okay, so let's go back up to C. I see you. But let's go back up to Debbie Jean. So Debbie Jean says what she meant was that she can go on and on with deep conversations. She just doesn't like small talk, and she doesn't like the competition that comes with nursing. Um, okay. Uh, do you have anything you want to start to start with, or
Handle the culture of nursing. I'm going to start with this, because I am very similar in that small talk will just, if you want the biggest eye roll for me, small talk me. However, what I had to learn was that there was value in small talk. Follow me. I do prefer deep conversation. What we're doing right now, girl, I could do this all day. Okay. Pour me a little something, sippy sip. Okay. I can do this all day. Um, but because I understood that the currency of working in a corporate environment, or of any kind, was relationships, I realized that it was more valuable to me to have small talk than it was an irritant. That I had a choice. I could lean into my preference and deal with what came from people feeling like they couldn't connect with me. And that tension of, because people would need to connect, the whole know, like, and trust factor, right? I had the choice of leaning into my preference of deep conversations and dealing with that tension, or enduring the small talk, getting used to it almost like a muscle. Like, no, nobody likes to wash their dishes, right? But if you do it enough, it don't really bother you that much, because you just know it needs to get done. And so for me, I moved my small talk into the category of, this is more useful to me than it is inconvenient or exhausting. And I view the small talk as a tool for my own peace. I know I'm probably going way too deep here, but I use it as a, if I give people a little bit and I'm genuinely concerned a little bit, what I thought I did not need. I was like, I don't need this much. Just let me come in and do my job, and I want to go home. Like, I don't really need what I thought I did not need. Actually made life a whole lot easier. So I chose where I wanted to sacrifice. So I sacrificed the, girl, let me go ahead and do the small talk, right? And until eventually I didn't have that attitude, because I saw the benefits of it. And then the benefits of it outweighed my disdain for it. And I hope that makes sense. Patricia, am I making sense?
yes, yes, and I
Okay.
completely agree. I feel like, and this might not be like roses and butterflies, but if you told me that that you left bedside nursing without another plan, if you feel like you are going to be working in this world, and you're going to avoid small talk, um, that is living in la la land. I will tell you, no matter what industry, no matter, I can't think of something right now that you are not going to be dealing with small talk. It better be a muscle that you exercise. I will say this. It's interesting that this is coming up because this was the other conversation that we were discussing in the pre-turn up, before we went live, when we were talking about what we should talk about today. This was the other thing. And I think there's some misconceptions that we have about working in corporate America or being a professional person, not understanding that there is a sort of silent code of conduct, and a way that will aid you in being more successful. And like she said, that currency, that relationship, that connection currency. And actually, small talk is a way of getting there. And so that's one way. And I won't exhaust that because I feel like Evelyn has really touched on that. But I'm going to talk to you on a nurse level, right? Nurse to nurse, introvert to introvert, it seems like. Um, Come up with your script. Every nurse knows what I'm talking about. How you greet your patient, how you greet every patient. Because part of the introverts thing is that they don't like it, it's mundane, and they have to come up with something to say, and it's not deep or whatever. Come up with your script. Every nurse has one. How you greet your patients, the same old jokes that you give your patients, the same old nicknames, the same old pet names, or the same old explanations of how you, the more you do nursing, the more you do things. And oh, it's kind of like, getting pricked by a little bee or whatever, whatever your explanations are, your analogies, whatever. Just come up with your script, right? And that way you're pulling out of the same hat. It doesn't take energy because it's second nature, right? That's just coming from the nursing perspective. If you think you're going to leave bedside and go to psych and not have to talk to people, that's probably, like you said, the fire, that's probably not where you want to go. Um, yeah, you might not want to go. From a nursing perspective, my sister and I are one of the classes that we're getting ready to launch. You guys know we have like a boutique business and also a consulting business as well. One of the courses that we just finished that we're getting ready to launch is how to choose a nursing specialty that's right for you. What, based on that course, I'm just going to give you a little bit of it here, and hopefully you'll tune into the whole course. But part of that is you don't like to have conversation. You don't like, and it can be exhausting for an introvert. If you walk into a med surg floor, you have 6 patients, and you gotta, hi, Mrs. So and so, how you doing? Okay, whatever. And you're in a situation where everyone's dumping on you. That's a lot. That's a lot. You have six in a row dump on you, and then some people want to keep dumping. Like they just every time you get in the room, you're just like, give me a second. Like I need a coffee. I need a break. Right. Um, the specialty that I would actually suggest to you is ICU. That has been the best bedside experience that I've had so far. And this might seem cruel to other people, but nurse to nurse, Debbie know what I'm talking about. And that is, most of your patients are intubated. They can't talk to you. They cannot talk to you. You can't. I mean, I say hello, but I don't say anything back. I don't hear anything back. You know what I'm saying? And that's really just for the courtesy and the respect of the patient, just in case they can hear you. But we don't know that they can. We don't know that they can't. But they likely can't, right? They don't talk back to you. You don't have to do the small talk with the patient. With family members, you might have to, but a lot of ICUs, their visiting hours are restricted. If you work nights after 9 o'clock, you're locked down. You don't see them. There is, no family or whatever, especially if you work on a locked ICU. And so that is the situation. If you know that you just want to be able to go in there and do your job and save lives, then ICU is a great place for that type of nurse. I would suggest ICU for every introverted nurse out there who finds it really exhausting. Not only that, even if you have to engage with patients, you only got one or two, right? Because they're really, really sick. So you don't have to deal with the 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 patients back to back to back to back to back. And so, if that is something that you can see yourself doing, look into that, right? Don't just leave the profession altogether because there's an aspect of it that doesn't work for you. Try something else, right? That better suits your personality. Hopefully, that was helpful. Did we touch on everything with that question?
Yeah, and can I just add one thing to the end of that?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to re-emphasize something you said is even with selecting ICU, I think that's great advice. Like just listening in is like makes sense, right? Like I tell my chefs the same thing. Like make sure you pick the world of culinary that you like. Like if you don't like brides,
Yeah.
don't go into wedding catering, okay? However, even if you're not going to have to talk to the patient, you're still going to have to do small talk with your coworkers.
Yes.
So you're still going to have to develop the muscle. Usually, Patricia and I, when we're trying to give our perspective, I don't even like to call it advice, but when we're trying to give our perspective, we're trying to give you the most well-rounded. I'm not going to tell you exactly what to do. Girl, I'm about to tell you exactly what to do. You're going to have to develop the muscle, or you're going to have to deal with the fallout of not having that.
Yeah.
Right. So even if you pick ICU, which I think you should explore, that sounds fantastic. I think Patricia gave you a great breakdown of that. You're still going to have to do small talk on the peer and the work side,
Hmm.
right? Or deal with the fallout of not having that kind of relationship with people. So, girl, go to the small talk gym and get to working it out.
One more thing I want to say really, really, really quickly before we move on to see who's up next, and that is because she spoke about the competition, the competitive nature of nursing, and there's part of me that really wishes that we did go to that the other conversation when it comes to work, because I think a lot of that is perception, right? The perception of this competitive nature. I don't want to harp on this too long. What we have to understand is um, it's half perception and half work when it comes to corporate America. Some of people would disagree on the percentage, but that's really what it is. I used to be that person that did all of this work, but didn't manage the perception. And so it looked like, because I'm the type of person that people will tell you who I've worked with, that things could be blowing up and I will just handle it. I'm not asking for help. I'm just like, whatever. And no one will know what happened in my day. No one will know what my day was like, because I viewed it as complaining. I viewed it as being whiny. I viewed it as bragging to other people about what my day was like and what I did. What I realized about being professional is that understanding that I had to also manage perception. That I have to let people know what I'm doing. I have to let people know how hard of a day this was to manage and how well I did. I have to be aware. And as a nurse, just to give you a practical example of ways I did this, when your charge nurse comes to you and asks you about, your assignment or whatever, because they're making the assignment for the next shift. How was your day? Usually I'm like, I'm good. I don't need anything. What I would do is, this was a really tough assignment. When you're making the assignment for the next shift, I wouldn't put these two patients together. So they're aware of the type of day I had and usually they're like, well, what happened? What's going on with these patients? And so then I can explain to them what, is going on without, making me look a type of way, which, is another issue. But
Without complaining.
without complaining, yes, without complaining, but also letting them know, like, hey, I want to put, I had a rough day today, or this patient, and a lot of them will be like, I didn't know all, because they come at the end of the shift, and they'll be like, oh, I didn't know all this was going on today, right? Because I didn't need the help, or I didn't need the extra hands, or whatever, but I want to make them aware the fact that I handled it. And so a lot of what I felt was competitive, or people bragging, or people doing the most, was not that. They were managing the perception and making people aware of what they are doing. You know what I mean? So I would check. I would just check that, and hopefully Evelyn and we could talk more about that in the future when it comes to corporate, because I think we have a lot of these sort of mindsets and perceptions that are not serving us. That I think that we can try to. I think we have some tools and some things that we can give you, some insight that we can give you that would help in that way. So hopefully, Debbie Jean, all that helped you. I wish you
Yeah.
the best. And I know it's tough. I've been there sitting on a floor and I'm just like, what am I doing here on this unit? But there is a light at the end of the tunnel. What's great about nursing is so broad. There's so many different things you can do. If bedside's not for you, leave it. We actually have a course coming out called How to Leave Bedside Nursing. So hit me up on Instagram or whatever, and I'll get you connected to those courses when they come out.
And also, ladies, I did a video on my channel a couple of years ago. It's about an hour long, but if y'all watching these lives, y'all used to me being long winded, and it's all about like just a couple of things I wish I knew about corporate. I dropped the link in the chat, but if you go to my channel and go to, I think it's Corporate America Hacks. Matter of fact, whenever Patricia and I do decide to speak specifically about like um, the real work in corporate America, as she alluded to, I would suggest that you watch that video first. There's a lot in there, and that way, because I'm going to reference some of those things. And I mean, Patricia has a world of experience. I've worked, like, for those of you who don't know, I am a chef now and an entrepreneur, but I used to be an engineer working in like Fortune 50 companies and all that kind of stuff. So when I tell you, like, we've done corporate, however you want to slice it. But watch that video, ladies. I think it would really help you. And it may take some of that stress of corporate America off, that I wish somebody had a sat down and told me before I entered, and I had to go through the growing pains before I learned it. So I just wanted to say that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, so we see a question. I think we get. You want to take two more questions and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay, so C says how to deal with toxic parents who's working home, but you're taking care of them. They're invading your privacy, telling others about you, stressing you out, and making you toxic.
How old are you?
Yes.
I mean, and I don't like. I'm really just curious because that's at least it's going to help me craft my response.
As she's responding to. So tell us your age, C. As she's saying that, Miss R 2020 says agree. If you I guess if you small talk just a little and ask them questions from a space of curiosity, you don't have to share that much about yourself. And you don't. But here's the thing. And again, I don't want to go back to the sort of corporate. There has to be a level of sharing that does exist, right? And you have to sort of figure out where that place is that you're comfortable with, right? And allowing and sharing that, right? But yes, if there's a place, if there's a line that you don't want to cross, you don't have to. You know, a lot of times it's just about asking the question, especially if you're an introvert. It's just about asking the questions and letting them lead the conversation. You know, while you might like, one thing I have done is like, hey, how was your weekend? Like, hey, what'd you do this weekend? Did you do anything interesting this weekend? And they'll be like, oh, you know, I hung out with my dog, and you know, I did this and I did that and this. And sometimes they go on for so long, you know, we don't have time to talk about my weekend. Like, you know what I'm saying? Or they might ask, and it's like, oh, I spent time with my husband, or oh, it was my sister's birthday and we went out. I don't have to say anything else about that, you know what I mean? Or oh, it was you know, we went to a graduation, or oh, I didn't really do anything. We just kind of hung out and just relaxed. There is no harm in that. That you're not revealing your deepest, darkest secrets. You know, this sort of fear that I think some of us have with um, exposing all our tools in our tool shed. You know what I'm saying? Like,
This is against me.
yeah, they'll use it against me. I think we should, you know, that sort of guarded nature. I don't want to say it's unmerited. It's not merited or it's not warranted. Um, but you need connection at the job. You need connection, and you need relationship. It just is. Just like when if you had a friend, you go to bat for your friend, you want relationships at the job. I think in that video you refer to some of these relationships as sponsors, right? You want somebody in the room that will
When
speak
you're not in
well
the
of
room.
you. When you're not there, that will speak well of you. You want someone that will go to bat for you. You need those relationships at work, y'all. You need them. I'm just.
Well, can I say y'all a secret? And I listen, and I don't know if C is still here,
Mhm.
but I will tell you that one of the biggest misconceptions when people leave a corporate environment to be an entrepreneur is they think they don't need relationships. Girl, you will not make sales.
Mhm.
So like you, you know, and I was one of those people at first, like, you know what, this corporate thing is so exhausting and da 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 da, whatever. I'm just gonna go do my own thing. Only to learn, girl, you need relationships even more if you decide to get out of it. And so, and there's you think there's not a lot of small talk with my clients? Listen, so very similar to what we were talking about before, like creating it, you're not going to be able to avoid it. If you want to date somebody, you're probably going to start with small talk and then you'll move to the deeper stuff. You really can't avoid it. Okay. So C says she's in her 20s.
Mhm.
What side of the 20s? I know this may seem irrelevant. Like, are you under 25 or like over 25? I know that may seem a little pry. I'm sorry. It's going to help me. That may be enough for Patricia, but I like, because I have thoughts.
So, Sierra Narita says, "What platform are y'all using for these lives?" I'm sorry, you know, I'm not from the South, so that y'all sometimes it's hard for me to get
Oh, see, I was like, yeah, are y'all using?
out. hard for me to get out. So we are using, I am using Ecamm Live. Well, we both use the same thing,
Yeah.
Ecamm Live, and that's the software that we're using to go live on YouTube.
Okay, she's over 25. Okay. Do you want to go first,
Go
Patricia, or do
ahead.
you want?
You go
Okay.
first.
So I'm going to use a word that came up earlier when we were talking about the cousin who was in need. This is the perfect place to talk about boundaries.
Yes.
So here's the thing about parents and children. I'm not a parent, but I am an adult child, right? I'm in my upper 30s. Um, and my mom and I are very close. So here's the thing, particularly in your 20s, what happens when you have to think about this when you're a young child. Your parent is like your direct manager. They tell you everything to do, what to wear, where to go, who to see, what to eat, what time to go to bed, etc. Then you move into your teenage years where you're trying to find your own way, but they're still your manager, like, because you live in a house. What happens is when we move into our 20s, they're no longer our manager, but neither we got that update and they didn't get that update, right? And they become more like a consultant. Okay. In the first half of the 20s, I will say typically if people transition well, meaning the parent and the child, then they're kind of a consultant who offers unsolicited advice, meaning they offer advice. They know you don't have to take it, but they offer it, right? Over 25 and beyond is when you have to really start setting some boundaries, like, even if I'm wrong, I'm gonna make the decision and I will inquire of your consultative services when I'm ready. Now, your parents are in the home. Is this your home or their home? Okay. You still can have boundaries either way, but I would be curious to know, are they living with you or are you living with them? Because that is going to play some level of a dynamic. You still can have boundaries and have privacy and all that kind of stuff if you're at their house. But I will say this, you've got to learn how to move into an adult parent relationship with your parents, right? So they will always be your parents and there's a certain level of respect that will always be there, but how you guys communicate and handle situations should evolve over time because you're now an adult, and so there are certain boundaries. So I'll use myself for example. After my father had passed away, I moved back in with my mother, right? And I remember I had a lot going on at that time, but I remember like just over disclosing about my finances to my mom all the time. Just she was like she knew to the dollar what I had coming in, going out, da 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 da. And I found that I was almost like seeking her permission to spend or do or not do, not because she was forcing it on me, but because I hadn't made the transition in my mind that I don't have to run everything by her because I'm grown. Okay. Not in a disrespectful way. But what happened was we had a small tense time because she was so used to knowing and I was so used to telling that when I stopped telling, not that she was ever like demanding, but she was so used to knowing that it was a noticeable difference when I started to maneuver differently in that area, right? So setting boundaries is not usually a pretty process, right? And so I will say this: if it's their home, you can set boundaries, but be prepared for them to set boundaries back with you because it is their house, okay?
Yeah, that is fair.
So right, so so here we go. It's their home now. If you're paying bills, if you're paying rent, um, it's more so like, hey, you know what? I know I'm living here as an adult, but here's how I really like to function. So whether it's about the privacy and them telling about you're going to have a conversation about like, hey, I know I'm your child, but I'm an adult. So there's just certain things that I don't want other people to know. And I really would appreciate it if you didn't disclose, my private XYZ to people, XYZ, hey, I know we're cohabitating, you're still my parents and I respect you and I respect your house and I'll never disrespect you. But when it comes to my privacy, this is what I need, right? How can we make that work? Right. So do you see that there's still respect for your parents there, but you're talking to them to like as an adult, like this is what I need, more so than like, will you give this to me, which is like a kid, like a request, if that makes sense. Um, that's all I got at the moment. But because I think I might have missed part of the question. Um, they're invading your privacy, telling other people, stressing you, them stressing you out is a lack of boundaries. And dare I say a choice, and making you toxic. You don't have to be toxic if they're toxic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I have this phrase, which is, I don't have to get on the roller coaster with you.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you ever seen somebody be real angry and they screaming and yelling? It's like people at the airport, right? You got the person at the thing and at the counter, and then you got the people who are like, I can't believe it's raining and y'all not gonna let us fly. And you ever seen the person at the counter be real calm while that person is screaming and wailing in front? They're not getting on the roller coaster with them. And so you don't have to accept the invitation to every argument that you're invited to. You don't have to be toxic with them. You may not be able to control their toxicity, but you can put a boundary up, and you don't have to get on the roller coaster ride with them. Let them swirl all by themselves in love, right? Just refuse to participate. I'm not talking about closing doors in people's face, whatever, but you don't have to engage in the crazy if you don't want to. Patricia, your thoughts?
Oh, I feel torn about this.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, because while I've been in a similar situation that you described where I'm coming back, right? But judging by her age, um, I can assume that did you ever leave? You know, is this the first time that they'd have to make this transition? Because if it's just like a reminder, like, oh, I'm grown, remember, then I feel like it's easier. That first hump is hard. That first
It's
hump
hard.
is hard. And if you went to school locally, or if you didn't go to college, or if you just, took some classes here and there, or if, you went to college maybe, but then you came straight back home, right back, straight back home. You know what I mean? Then they've never had to make that transition. So this is new. And the longer you do something, the more that habit is really ingrained. And so the longer you stay, the harder it really is. And so if this is the first time you've made this transition, you did mention in the earlier comment that you're taking care of them, but in their house. So I don't know what that dynamic is. But if you are in a situation where you can leave, I think you should.
Yeah, time to go.
I think you should. If I don't know the extent of that taking care of them. I don't know if that's financial, like if you're financially contributing to the home, or if it's like they have some ailments and you're physically taking care of them. What that will look like in getting them other services in the home, or other family members that might need a place to stay and also need a situation, a little hookup, whatever that needs to happen. But sometimes I am a witness that, and I love my parents, but I had to force that transition by leaving, you know,
Me too.
and it's through that process that actually grew our relationship. Now, when I came back, there's a little learning curve, right? A little learning curve. But ultimately, I got my parents to the point where they're like, but as when I left, as I was gone, you're grown. I got them to that consultant phase, right? Where I know I'm just gonna say what I can say. You grown, you can do whatever. And at first, it's real salty. You grown, I can say something, and you still not gonna listen, and da 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 da, whatever. But at the end of the day, I'm like, they get it. They know that they can tell me, advise me, whatever. But at the end of the day, it's my decision, my decision to make. And so that's the advice I would give. I don't know how feasible that is or helpful that is, but sometimes the distance just helps. Not that you have bad parents or whatever. I mean, everybody has their flaws, but it just may be that they're just used to treating you like you're five. And I can imagine how hard that is. One day you're changing diapers, next day they're 25. You know what I'm saying? And you got to change your mind from, you know, blowing their nose and tying their shoes to just letting them live life. I can only imagine how difficult that is to turn that switch off. Um, and at some extent, I had to remember too, is allowing my parents, again, the space to sort of back up into that. You know what I mean? They're wired to be a parent, and sometimes they want to step into that role, and allowing them the space to be in my head mentally to be like, she's my mom. She's always gonna try to tell me what to do. You know what I'm saying? But realizing that you don't have to go there, you don't have to engage, and also reminding her that you don't have to do what she tells you to do, right? But as a mother, there's certain things she has a responsibility in herself to say, hey, I feel like that's going to hurt you if you do it. And there's part of her, and she needs that peace to know as a mom, I have to get that out because you're my child and I love you. And I need to advise you in that way. What you choose to do with it is what you choose to do with it. So allowing her to be your mom, but also not to overstep boundaries that you set up. She says, we're close like friends, but it gets overbearing when they gossip to friends and family about my privacy. I did everything. I did everything. I worked, went to school, and paid bills. She's stressed, sick, and hurt. So that's a tough situation to be in.
Yeah. And I wanted to say this as you were talking, Patricia, that as you do move into that the parent is consultant and I'm adult phase, one of the challenges that I had with my mother was that I wasn't consistent, meaning I allowed myself to fall back in the child phase when it was convenient, and then when I didn't want to deal, I wanted to be an adult. And here's the thing, you cannot do that.
Yeah.
So it's like you've got to you've got to make that switch. And even if there's a situation where it arises where it would be convenient to fall back into that parent child relationship or little kid relationship, don't do that, and you'll know what that is. I hear from others my business and they're negative and I'm not doing enough. I'm overextending myself. I'm doing self-care, and for her family I'm being selfish. So I want to say this, see, and I'm gonna risk being wrong here. I do believe that as we get older, we can become friendly with our parents. Okay, I'm using my words carefully. Friendly with our parents, and that there is some semblance of a friendship with our parents, but they are always your parent
Yeah.
first. And when you start to overly blur those lines, is when you will start facing some of the challenges you're facing, because I don't know your parents, and so this is all speculative. I could be completely wrong, and if so, I apologize. But when it talks about them gossiping to your family and friends, I'd be curious: and did they gossip previously about their own friends? Right? Like is this a new behavior, or have they always been like this with other people? It's just that you were the kid and you didn't fall into this category. And so now you're grown, you're an adult, and y'all have moved into this maybe friendship over being a parent and a offspring relationship, and that can get a little sticky. I am a fan of the mindset of parents before friends always. Some people are a fan of the I'm always a parent, I'm never your friend. I understand why that's that way, right? It's almost like I'm friendly, but I ain't your friend. You know what I mean? Like, do my mother and I have a very healthy relationship? Yes. Do we have quality time? Do we spend time together? Do we laugh, joke? Yes. She's my mother. Uh, I still don't even talk to her like a friend, even though we have a closeness and an openness, right? Because it could get a little sticky. Because then, am I functioning like a daughter, or am I functioning like a friend? Because those are two different roles. So it just sounds like there may be some blurred lines here.
Mhm.
Both have their pros and their cons. I think you need to decide which one you want to be the leader, right? Do you want the mother, I mean, the parent, child, like, but adult child to be the prevailing relationship, or do you want the friendship to be the prevailing relationship? I mean, I'm going out on a limb here. I know I might be stretching it, but um,
I feel like you, just personally, your parent should never be your friend. I
right.
think the parent-child relationship evolves,
Yes.
but I don't think you should ever see your parent as your friend. I think it's real dangerous. And this idea, and also I feel like you may be struggling a little bit here too, in that though you're friendly with your mom, part of that, or parents, part of that is understanding who she is and acting accordingly. If you had a friend that gossiped about your situation with their friends and family members, would you continue to share information with them? Are you sharing because you want to? Are you sharing because you feel like you have to because she's your mom? Because in that situation, you are operating as a child and not a grown child, an adult child, right? Because I realize there's certain things I don't discuss with my mother.
Yep.
I'm married now. There's certain things I do not discuss with her. And to be honest, that transition wasn't that great because there were certain things I never discussed with her. And so, as an adult, anyway,
Right.
as an adult. And so, you know, I think it's really important that you also check yourself that you're treating the relationship the way it ought to be as it stands right now.
Mhm.
Understanding that my mom got issue with keeping a couple of mouth closed, so there's certain things I'm just not going to tell her. I'm going to keep to myself. And so that's an unnecessary headache to me. It's an unnecessary headache to have. Gets you stressed out and upset because she's sharing your business, but then why are you sharing your business? Is it because you feel like you have to? Because you don't. You actually don't have to. So, yeah, it just seems like boundaries need to be,
And roles.
yeah, roles and boundaries. But
She said,
mhm.
we're like best friends, but it can be toxic at times. Be the adult at all times. She treats me like an adult, but can it slip back into parent child? So I'm confused. Do you want it to be like parent little kid? When I say parent child, I'm talking about like parent adult child
Mhm.
uh, relationship, right? Um, yeah. I mean, yeah. I think there's some boundaries,
Yeah,
and you can be friendly with your parents, but they're not your friend.
that's the gist of it.
That's
Peanut Jelly 90 says, I'm 30 and I barely have friends. I have associates and acquaintances. Don't know how to trust. Hashtag introverted life. And
mm-mm, I'm gonna let
I'm gonna
first.
tag this with it from Caribbean Curls, who says, I feel the same, talking about Peanut Jelly 90, saying, and then later on says, is it bad to be a loner?
Okay, first, girl, I'm blaming that on trust. Has nothing to do with being an introvert.
Yeah.
So don't. I'm an introvert. Don't put that on us. We love you, but if you got trust issues, then your issues. It's not the introverted community's issues. Okay. Um. So here's the thing: the root of your situation is in your statement.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 30 and I barely have friends. I have associates and acquaintances. Don't know who to trust. Right. So there is no close intimacy with people without trust.
Yeah.
I mean, so you're kind of on a hamster wheel here. And it's not like, oh, once people prove to me they can be trustworthy, I'll trust them. Yeah, their relationships have risk. Life has risk. You know, you could trust somebody and they could betray your trust. You could trust somebody and they could not betray your trust. If you want close friends, you're going to have to risk heartache. You're going to have to risk disappointment. You're going to have to risk being hurt, being misunderstood, uncomfortable conversations, inconvenience. But that's not all that it is. I think somewhere we have picked up this belief that either it's safe for me to be all alone, that way nobody can hurt me and I don't have to worry about trusting people, whatever, not realizing there's consequences to living on an island as well. But also, both of them are a risk. Being a loner is a risk, being in a relationship with people is a risk. One of them has more rewards. Okay, so I would say, where did you lose trust for people? What happened? What did you experience? How old were you? What was going on? Where you were like, you know what? I can't really trust people. Because until you go back to that place and start to unpack that and put that in the proper context of that was that, but that is not a representation of the human race, then you will continue to feel like you barely have friends and you just have associates and acquaintances. And you probably could be tempted to miss out on some really great relationships. But if you've got that great wall of distrust built up, nobody is going to scale that. And sometimes we want people to scale it, break it down, dismantle it like it's the Berlin Wall, and that people will have the choice and be like, you know what, I'm not. I'm gonna go to somebody whose wall ain't that big.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I
Patricia.
I agree with everything that you said. I won't even add to it, but I wanted to address the is it bad to be a loner um, question from Caribbean Curls. I want to remind you guys that um, we are social beings, whether introvert, extrovert, ambivert. We are social beings. Now, the how and what it looks like might be different, right? A lot of us like quality interaction versus quantity of interaction. Whatever it is, we are social beings, right? There may be those of us who require more alone time. There may be those of us who value our alone time. Um, and that's okay. But this idea of a loner to me is problematic. And anytime I hear it, it actually raises a red flag for me. And why is it that, or what is it about you, Caribbean Girls? I'm just going to speak directly to you. What is it about you that you are avoiding something that you were naturally made for? Why is it that you rather not trust? You rather not take a risk on someone? You rather not be vulnerable to protect yourself? Why is that? Those are the questions you really have to ask yourself because good people are out there. They are. They are. They are. And so, what is going on with you? What has happened to you? What is wrong with your perspective that you rather be a hermit in your own shell than experience the world? So, is it okay to be a loner? Is it bad to be a loner? I think yes. I think yes. You need people around to challenge your thinking. You need people around for emotional support. You need people around to laugh at jokes and to crack jokes. You need people around to vent when vent to when you're upset. You need that social interaction, right? And so even Adam, who was perfect, was lonely until he had Eve, right? And so that's the way we were created. And so this idea of being loner, the next question, if that's the way you feel, I'd ask, beyond just being an introvert, beyond just needing time alone, beyond all of that, I'd ask myself why. That's what I would say.
And I would even challenge the idea that she believes that she's a loner because um I think sometimes we think being a loner, there's a badge of honor, like, oh, I don't need anybody else. But let me tell you something that you're not even aware of that negates the belief that you think you're a loner. So Patricia did an elegant job, eloquent, can I talk today? Eloquent job of answering whether or not being a loner is a bad idea. And I 100% agree. I want to challenge the thought that you even believe you're a loner. And I'm going to give you some evidence on why I can tell you that you're not a loner. And it's really simple. It's so obvious. You don't even realize that it's there, which is you're here, right? You're here because there's value in this connection that we've created, right? There's value in this conversation that we created, right? We enjoy talking to you. I don't think you would be here if you didn't enjoy interacting with us, right? So just this setting alone lets me know you're not a loner. You want connection, right? We look forward to having you every week. You said earlier, I've been waiting on this all day, right? Because you want the connection, right? But you can have this and you can have it up close and personal, right? This is a small segment in time and it may feel safe because you don't know us personally and we don't know you personally. You may feel like we could never hurt your feelings or maybe find out something about you that you don't want us to know, but you won't get the same level of connection, right? Patricia and I, this is fun to us, but we have a deeper connection that y'all don't get to see, right? Because we have leaned into like, hey, at some point this thing might not be picture perfect, right? But we're still going to be friends. So, I would challenge the idea that you're a loner. Like Patricia said, the way you may introvert may look different, right? I can go long periods of time by myself and have a great time. But eventually I need people, okay? Uh, you know what I mean? I'm still quarantining and Texas is like, girl, what's a quarantine, right? But I would challenge even the thought that you are a loner. And I think you guys remember those, like, I call them teeny bopper movies that we grew up with. They were kind of like if Saved by the Bell was a movie. There was a thousand of them, right? Disney made them, whatever, and there was always a loner character, right? And there was always this kind of like sense of pride, like, oh, I don't need to be in the in crowd, or oh, I don't need to be in this, or whatever. I'm a loner. And the reality was the loner was never a loner because the loners always had friends. Right? There was never a true loner. It's just that you have your own private community, and that's okay. So I think it's really about there's no right way or wrong way, like, or right group or wrong group to be a part of, but you do need to be in community. We were hardwired, as Brene Brown says, hardwired for connection. As a woman, to use Patricia's example, Adam was lonely. As a woman, when we got here, we were never alone.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So I would challenge the belief that you even think that you're a loner.
Yes, Peanut. No, Miss R 2020 kind of echoes that and says, "I challenge you to look at your childhood wounds and trauma. Um, is everyone that you meet not trustworthy?" She sort of responds later on and says, "Yes, it stems from my childhood, teenage years, and early adulthood, even the way by my African parents." And I know culturally, at least I experienced that too, that sort of mistrust or side eye for people, you know, like be careful, you never know, and that sort of passed on, and it's not that you ought to be you ought not be cautious, but at some point a risk is involved when it comes to relationship. And that's just period. Kay Sherelle says, "I'm a loner, um, but I'm trying, believing for better, intentional friendships. It can be challenging, especially when you go through things Love y'all and the platform. So it's great that you're being intentional about your friendship because they're not just going to appear, y'all. We're not five anymore, where it's just the girl who sat next to me in class. We do have to be intentional about our relationships. And we're going to get ready to wrap it up here soon because y'all know about like 2.5 hours right now. Y'all, we love this. It's just so good. Thanks for just for being here today. But Jen Dems adds something here. I'm going to read it. She says, my lack of trust for others was with my in laws. In 2018, my husband became suicidal due to military stress. And when I called his family for help, we have 2 or 3 young kids, they witnessed so much. His family automatically blamed me and called people I have no idea who they were from, Haiti, to threaten my life. Since then, I completely distanced myself from them. They never apologized, instead, played victim. Oh, okay. You have something to say about this? I have a few
I'm
things to
reading it
say.
again. Let me read it one more time. My lack of trust for
Huh?
others was with my in-laws, or I'm assuming started with your in-laws.
Yeah.
Maybe
Hmm.
in 2018, okay, 2 years ago, my husband became suicidal due to military stress. And when I called his family for help, we have 3 young kids. They witnessed so much. His family automatically blamed me and called people I have no idea who they were from Haiti to threaten my life. Since then, I completely distanced myself from them. Their mother. Okay. Okay, this is where I'm gonna start. Um, I'm gonna go backwards. Ooh, there's a lot here. I'm gonna say a couple of things. I don't know, Jen. I think you might have been on earlier when we were talking to one of the other ladies about her cousin, and we were talking about how to gently recommend therapy to them. This is one of those moments, right? So I would be reckless to assume that I could advise you on something as serious as being married to someone who has experienced like post traumatic stress and having suicidal thoughts. So, with love, the first thing I'm going to say is I would recommend um some form of external support for you and for your husband, meaning that he may need his own private space to work through some of those military stresses and what has happened as a result of that. And I think for you, being married to someone who is struggling with those issues, you probably need your own set of support, and then on top of that, having the additional um, reaction from the family. So that's what I'm going to say first. I'm gonna move back from that and say also, that's my main piece of suggestion. I'm gonna move back from that and then say when suicide is a big word, right? And so a lot of people, rightfully so, are extremely concerned, fearful. And when people are fearful and concerned, they can be irrational when they are concerned for people's livelihood and the health of someone they care about. It does not excuse it, but people can be extremely irrational about that. And so I think that's why I'm recommending to get external support around that, because that is traumatic to you to be accused of that, but also knowing that they may have their own unhealthy mindsets, and that word could have triggered them in ways, in that situation, in ways that like nobody's mentally prepared to deal with the risk of something like that happening, right? So um I think also, and I'm careful when I say this because of the severity of the situation. I When we hold on to the need for an apology, because you said they never apologize, that can be a form of bondage. Meaning, if the control, or if the mechanism for you to heal is in someone else, is in the hands of the people who caused you to needed to heal in the first place, like that's like a vicious cycle, right? So again, I think some external support would really help with like what does your healing look like without an apology? Um and let me go back up. And so I can see why, like, that's a significant trust wound. Like, you were reaching out for help and it went a way that you couldn't even imagine. And so I think you have what I like to call multi-tiered trauma, meaning it's traumatic enough that, you know, your husband was experiencing trauma and trying to be there and supportive for him. That's traumatic. Then for the kind of trauma that he was dealing with, suicidal thoughts, that's extremely traumatic. And then to reach out for help in the middle of trauma and experience more trauma, which is to be accused, that's traumatic, right? So like there's like a trauma sandwich here, right? So I would say, as much as Patricia and I have thoughts on a lot of things, this one requires the skills and the wisdom of someone who is well versed in this level of trauma. Does that? I hope that's making sense, right? So I don't want to come across as dismissive, but I also don't want to come across as reckless, as if I have enough experience to instruct you, for lack of a better word. But what I can say is I do recognize trauma, and all trauma needs an emergency response. And so you and your husband have had some significant trauma. And I would say, like, yesterday, y'all need to be getting some external help, probably together and also probably separately. Patricia, your thoughts?
Yeah, she kind of followed up saying that she did do therapy individually as well as couple. We did
Okay.
get better, but I keep remembering this. We have been married for 10 years, not healing at all, just got angrier. So, Jen, there are few, the first thing you have to sort of realize, and I echo everything Evelyn has said, is that people will fail you, disappoint you, and show you who they are in relationships. You can either um, choose to deal with it, choose to work with them, or walk away. Those are the options that you have. In my opinion, um, his family has shown themselves, right? They have shown themselves. And so I don't, I think Evelyn touched on, I think, what you need to do in your marriage, your relationship, your what your husband needs and to continues to need. Okay, because it's not. I understand, and this is another situation with our our military men and women. There's a lot of trauma. There's a lot of PTSD. There's a lot of mental health issues. We're not even aware. We don't know what they're exposed to. We don't know what they go through. We don't know their indoctrination. They can't even tell us of what they the fullness of what they've been through. And so I do have friends that are in constant therapy that are military veterans. So this may be something that he will need for the rest of his life. You know what I mean? And it may get to the point where he needs medications and things to help in that vein. And while I know it'd be difficult to be in a relationship with someone who's dealing with suicidal thoughts and depression and things like that, but understanding that um, this is just as viable as any physical ailment that he may be dealing with. And so with that, there's some adjustments that needs to be made. So try not to be resentful. While I understand that it may be difficult for you to deal with all of this, but try to understand the level of trauma that he's experienced that you know of and that you don't know of. You know what I mean? And I'm just connecting the dots between the military and the suicidal thoughts and the depression because I've seen that just in the medical field and just also dealing with people in my personal life. Another thing, like married woman to married woman, that I want to make sure that you learn from this. What you've learned from this is his family is not a safe space. Unfortunately, you learn it the hard way. But I think in any married woman, single woman watching this is an evaluation that you have to make very quickly, very early in your dealings with your husband's or potential husband's family. Is his family a safe space? That's first off. The second thing is defining where your safe spaces are. In my own marriage, we have people that we sat down and talked about. If we're ever going through it and we can't talk and we can't see eye to eye, this is who we go to. This is option B. This is option C. If all else fails, this is the last option. Um, and so defining who those safe spaces are, because it may have been that he didn't have a great relationship with his mom and dad, or you didn't have the greatest relationship with them to get to start. You know what I mean? They were already side eyeing you, and so you sort of walked into this situation already the bad person. You know what I'm saying? Because they already felt some type of way about you, and their priority is not the relationship. The priority is their son. And when you're in a situation with that, when you don't have a family that's supportive of their marriage, things like this will happen, and they will divide the two of you and see you as two separate things instead of one thing. And so I'm really sorry that you had to learn it this way. But I think the takeaway from this is, right, because you can trust again, like you can trust people again. But when people, you know, teach you or, tell you who they are, you have to believe them. And so you believe now that your in laws are not in support of your relationship. They're not in support of your marriage and the well being of your marriage and the health of your marriage, so much so that they were so quick to make you the bad person instead of really focusing that energy in helping their son. And so this is the lesson that I hope that you walk away from this, and not that everyone is bad and everyone is has issues and everyone is seeking out here to make me look bad and is selfish and all of that. Not everybody is like that. And don't let your in-laws shape or frame your belief about people. Rather, walk away from this situation saying, I have a husband who's going through. I'm going to walk with him in this journey, right? If that's your decision to do so. We're going to continue to work in therapy. We're going to get him the help that he needs. We're going to get the medication that he needs if he needs that. And we're going to work on this. We're going to find out where our safe places are outside of therapy, right? Not just a therapist, but who do you currently have in your life that can be a vent? I've been places in my short experience as a married person where I'm just like, oh, call so and so. I can't. You know what I'm saying? Call a safe place because I'm not a man, so I don't understand this fully or whatever. Have a conversation because whatever. So where are those safe places, having conversations about where those safe places are, and then making your husband aware of how deep this hurt you, that his family did this. You didn't talk about where he stands on this, but having a conversation about really how that made you feel, in all this, because it will have implications, right? In the relationship and the family dynamic and stuff like that. So he understands how deep of a wound this was. But that's just what I would add with what Evelyn said about therapy and getting the help that you guys need, and it doesn't stop with 6 sessions, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 sessions. You continue to do this because this does seem like a journey. You know what I'm saying? Like, these things just don't go away. And so sort of see it like that. If people are on, have lupus or whatever, or any sort of autoimmune disease or um, chronic illness, there is a regimen that you have to be on. Whereas physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, medications, or whatever. And so some of these emotional and mental illnesses, you also need a regimen, a lifetime regimen. And so understanding that is just, this is not just a bump in the road, but a journey that you guys will do together. Yes, it's hard, but don't allow it to turn you guys on each other, right? but being aware of it and then moving forward with that. Hopefully, that helped. Jen says, I agree with both advice. It made me stronger. Uh, Jen said, dang, Pat, it's as if you knew. Thank you. I literally stood alone during those dark days, prayed and fought to be strong to face this. Yes, if you are a praying woman, girl, let me tell you, that is one of your biggest tools. Okay, lift him up in prayer. There's certain things, as close as you are, maybe you won't understand that he's been through, and so you just gotta pray that God becomes that person for him. You know what I'm saying? And that God gives him strength and God reminds him of his value. God reminds him of his worth. That when he's having those bad thoughts, that he thinks of you, that he thinks of his children, that he thinks about everything good that he wants to continue to live for. Pray for him. Pray for him while he's not there, while he can't hear you. And then when he can hear you, pray for him. You know?
Have you ever heard of the book The Power of the Praying Wife, Jen?
Mm,
I don't know if I have it. Listen, different situation, but the woman in that book, her husband took her through, okay? And they made it to the other side. Listen, I feel like it's a book everybody should get on their wedding day. You know what I'm saying? And so if you are a reading sort of woman, and since you mentioned prayer and like Patricia said, like I think that book might encourage you. Um, for like we said, it's a journey. Healing is a journey, it's not a destination
yeah.
for you and for your husband, right? Because it's traumatic to be supportive of someone who's going through trauma. Who wrote the book? Oh, let me look it up. And while I'm looking it up, do we have any more questions,
Yes,
Patricia?
this is the last one from A Star. She says, "I feel like at times my female friends get competitive or jealous of me. It's so weird because I'm such a girl's girl. I like that. That's my comment. I like that, girl's girl. Even though I don't have many friends, I just hate female drama. Now, Miss A, the video that goes live on my channel tomorrow talks about the jealous friend, the competitive friend. It goes live at noon. So I talk about that in detail, but we will touch on it uh, right now. Evelyn, I mean, you're going to hear what I think tomorrow anyway on that video. So I'll let Evelyn lead this question out about
Okay.
competitive or jealous.
I feel like at times my female friends get competitive or jealous of me. It's so weird because I'm such a girl's girl, even though I don't have many friends. I just hate female drama. So, um, let me just say this before I respond. Y'all know what you know what I love about people who do like two personalities, whether it's like a podcast or a live stream, or whatever, is you have like good cop, bad cop, right? Kev on stage used to have righteous and ratchet. Different people have different things. And what I love about Patricia is her very loving and endearing and firm but soft approach to things. That's not me. So, with that being said, your statement already told me what I need. You put the friends in quotes.
Mm.
So it sounds like, based on this one little, because listen, context clues will tell on you. Okay, you already put the friends in quotes, so you're already telling me they're not really your friends.
Mm.
So I'm about to spin this on his head real quick. Here's the thing: they may, in fact, be jealous of you. This is true. I don't have enough data to tell you whether or not they are genuinely or they not. What I really want to know, and this is how I work with my clients, right? What I really want to know is, what are you benefiting out of them being jealous? Because you're getting something out of it. Whether it makes you feel, and here's the thing: we will never say these things aloud. We may never admit them to ourselves. But if you're sticking around, then you're getting some kind of intrinsic value out of that. Meaning, do you feel like, oh, they're so jealous of me, and does that make you feel better than? Does it make you feel important? Does it make you feel like some friends are better than no friends? Does it make you feel like, at least we're together? It, because you putting them in quotes lets me know that you already know that they're frenemies. And if you know that you're a girl's girl, then why haven't you just gone and hung with more girls, or at least gotten on the path? So if they jealous, Patricia gonna talk about that tomorrow in the video. We can't control them.
Mm.
Our concern is about you, and so I want to know, why are you staying?
Mm-hmm.
That's that. You probably didn't see that one coming. Okay, I love you. Okay, but I'm interested to see that one. Just a little snatcheroo. Okay, on a good Tuesday. Because sometimes, if we're being honest, we may have been in relationships where you did. I mean, you never would say it out loud. You never read it, but maybe you did feel like you were better, or maybe you did, but you were getting something, right? Even if the something wasn't positive, even if it was like you were getting validation, and their jealousy was a weird form of validation, like whatever the case may be, I would really challenge you to dig deep on what's making you stay. Because even when we stay in situations that we don't like, it's because we're getting something out of it. Okay, that's all I got.
Listen, I don't have anything else to say. Well, let me say this,
Hmm.
and I kind of touch on this tomorrow, right? So we're just going to touch on it for a little bit. Um, what we have to realize is that people act out of their own experiences, their own pain, their own perception, how they see the world, and they make decisions based on all of those things. And so I think a lot of times we can be a little bit narky, a little bit narcissistic, and believing that everything that anyone does is about us. And truly, if this friend is jealous or competitive, it has everything to do with them, right? And I do have a problem that the friends was in quotation marks rather than just friends, because that gives me this sort of idea that they aren't really friends to begin with. Um, Tomorrow I sort of deal with the issue where you have a friend, like a someone you would call a friend who's competitive or jealous. Um, I do want to say this before I continue, is that people are allowed to have jealous moments. Again, guys, we expect people to be perfect. If your friend, really wants something that, and really waited for, really working hard to get something that you just got, come on. You know what I'm saying? They might have a moment. Let them have a moment and be like, hey, it really hurt my feelings. I remember when I was at a point in my life where I knew this person. You gotta make it real general.
Careful,
Real general.
careful.
Where I had just met this guy, and he was, really nice looking. And, we started talking. And so I told my friend about it. And so I told her about it. And she was like, oh, she was kind of quiet, didn't say anything. Now, she's single, and her whole thing is that no one really tries to approach her. She feels like she always has to approach men. And that was her MO. That's a whole different, we're not gonna talk about that. But and so I showed her a picture, and she was just like, oh, he's light skinned. That was back in my light skin phase. Everybody had that for a little bit. Um, oh, he's light skinned. He's probably gay.
Oh no, she didn't. Like, y'all can you smell the bitterness, right? Like, you can smell it. You be like, don't have nothing to do with me and what I just said.
Okay. And I just was like, oh my goodness. But I had to realize that she's in a situation where, I have what she wants, and that's attention from men, or whatever it is. And so realizing that that's where that comment is coming from, that has nothing to do with me. You know what I mean? And so that's sort of what I'm speaking about, is sort of detach yourself from the situation. You know what I mean? And people will act out of their own pain, their own situation. That doesn't mean you have to tolerate it. That doesn't mean you have to stand for it. That doesn't mean that all of that is okay, right? But don't take it so personally. I guess that's my point, is don't take it so personally. And so tomorrow what I talk about is, I try to emphasize that point. But eventually you do get to a situation where you have a competitive friend. It's in her nature. For whatever reason, she doesn't see you as a friend, she sees you as a foe. And I don't like to be personally in situations where I'm in a competitive friendship. I don't. And so if you value true high quality friendships, and that's what this person is not about, that, then you walk away from the friendship. You really do. If there's cattiness, she talks about the cattiness and the drama and all of that. You learn that real quick. That is so, you should not find yourself in a 5 year friendship and that's when you just finding out that this person's petty. You know what I'm saying? You know your petty friend. Like, you know her. You know who she is. You know what she does to other people. What makes you think you won't be on the end of that one day?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so see that stuff, see that early, catch that early, and be like, you know what, this is probably not somebody that I should be dealing with. This is probably not somebody that I should be um, friends with, and walk away. So that's all I want to say. I don't want to give the video away too much. But go ahead, Evelyn.
I will say this, I because she commented, she said, "That's because I've realized they are not my friends. I've known them for over a decade. It didn't start that way." I think she's talking about the friends being in quotes. She said, "Not at all. We have
Okay.
children and attach more because of that." I just answered, when you know someone for a long time and you have children that they grew up together, it's not that easy. I don't need validation from any person. Girl, so let me tell you, okay, this makes so much more sense now.
Mm.
Girl, you collected them friends, you didn't curate them.
Yeah.
That's what happened. You just pick them up along the way because your kids were connected. You didn't choose them as friends. And so I don't know, A asterisk, I'm gonna just call you A. I don't know if you're subscribed to my channel, but I know Patricia and I both have done videos about whether it's designing your life, that's what Patricia talks about, or me talking about curating your life versus collected. You collected these women or these people. You didn't curate them, you didn't select them. And so that's probably why y'all are having this disconnect,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it was probably like, oh, okay, my kids need a play buddy or, a playmate or whatever. I don't know. I don't have children yet. But what I'm saying is, you just let the circumstances build a friendship. And while you may have known them for 10 years, it doesn't sound like you've known them. She said, "That's not it. It's too general of a question to ask. I guess it's more to it than this. You all got it wrong, but it's all good." Okay, that's fair.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot. It's a few sentences is hard to decipher through a computer screen. So
Peanut Jelly says, I don't have time for cattiness, drama, and competition. Bye.
agreed.
I agree.
Ag-
I agree. But with still allowing people to have a moment,
Yep.
and making them aware of how that comment, or how whatever it is, sort of makes you feel. So, Mika says, what is the name of your channel? I'd love to follow you. I'm assuming you mean Evelyn. Yes.
Evelyn Inc.
There
That's my
she
channel.
is right there. Subscribe to her channel. If there are no other questions, I think we're going to end it here, y'all. This was a good one. I'm glad we decided to talk about friendships, and we hit on a lot of things, and trust and trauma and and honestly, all of those are related to relationships and how we build our relationships. If you enjoyed this conversation, go ahead and give this video a like, share it with a friend, because it
Yeah.
will be posted and they can watch the replay. And I'll be trying to keep this short, so y'all. But here's the thing: a lot of y'all are at home or in the car, or hey, Miss Liberian Lake, you was here all along. You didn't say hello. But in the car or whatever, just play it. You know what I'm saying? Just listen to all the goodness and
What it
all the
is a
conversation.
girls' night, right? Like, pause this, watch, pause, rewind, discuss with your friends, and get Zoom going. You know what I'm saying? Like this is like a this is like a Titanic length movie over here. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
So yes, ladies, I appreciate you guys coming out, and showing up today. We appreciate it. Yes, yes, yes. Love y'all. The big sisters I never had. Oh, that is awesome. Oh, Liberian lady said she just got here. Okay, girl. So you're gonna have to catch the replay because there's a lot of goodness in this one. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for tuning in live. Don't forget to like the video on your way out, you guys. I wish you guys well, that you guys are healthy and happy, mind, body, and soul. Evelyn, you have anything you want to add?
just say, ladies, this has been great. I think next week we'll be on my channel, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes,
Somebody
and we're
did
probably gonna.
ask that. They asked if it was weekly. It is weekly.
Yeah, it's weekly. 2 weeks on Patricia's channel, then 2 weeks on my channel. So next week we'll go on my channel, and if we do decide to talk about like navigating the workplace, then make sure you guys check out that corporate hacks video on my channel. I think it's going to be a great precursor from kind of the perspective that I'm going to be coming from on that. So that's it, ladies. We hope you enjoyed it. And make sure you subscribe to both of our channels because listen, it be 3 o'clock, 3:30. It depends. You know what I'm saying? You turn your
Yes,
notifications on
4,
and you check this
4:30.
out.
Just make sure your notifications are on. Thank you guys. Thank you, Erica, Mika, Jam Cerise, Peanut Jelly 90, 8 plus, A star. I mean, thank you to everyone who's here live, and we will see you guys next Tuesday. Well, I'll see you tomorrow at noon this channel, and then next Tuesday, 4:30 ish Eastern Standard Time on Evelyn's channel. Alrighty, guys. Bye.